Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Abby and I like to talk about spooky things. In today's video, we are going to be reading and discussing the recently released documents from the Idaho 4 case. I have read through all 314 documents that were released on July 23rd after the gag order was lifted the day of sentencing. It took me quite a while to get through it all. So I'm going to be reading out loud the important bits of information and important documents. So those of you who are interested and want more insight into the case and how they were able to nail the individual who committed these crimes, Brian Kohberger, who from now on we will be calling either BK or inmate 163214, because in my personal opinion, this should not be about him. He should not be getting any more attention from this than he already has. He does not deserve the respect of being addressed by his full name. I have been silently following along this case since the beginning, and now that some information is being released, I personally consume a lot of true crime content. I've posted true crime videos before, and given the hold that this case seems to have on the media, I thought it would be important to discuss. And also, I'm sure that there are plenty of people that are interested to know what are in the documents but don't necessarily have the time to sit down and read them all because, again, it took me quite a bit of time. So this is for you to sit down and listen. I'm not going to read every single one of them because there are quite a few documents, while very important to solving the case itself and the police work, I don't think is necessary to mention, like, oh, we got a warrant for Snapchat or whatever, unless it is absolutely pertinent to them finding out information. Those little things I will not be including, but I will be linking down below the website where you can go and download all these files yourself if you do want to see the little bits of information that I leave out of this. I also want to mention that these are redacted documents. The things that are redacted in these documents are names of people that are not the victims, birth dates, phone numbers, social security numbers, addresses, information that is absolutely none of our business. So there are some people, like the two roommates, who we know who they are, even though their names are redacted. I will be referring to them by their names. Certain parents that it's obvious that that's who they're talking about, I will be referring to them by their names, but anyone else I will just be referring to the two initials that are not redacted, referring to each individual. I just wanted to add, you'll note that I'll refer to Maddie and Kaylee's parents typically by their full names, whereas I am primarily just sticking with the initials for Xana and Ethan's family members. I have decided to do this specifically because it seems like Xana's family is more private, and Ethan Chapin's family, having not been to the sentencing, it seems like they are kind of trying to move on. So obviously their names are all over the internet, but because they seem to be handling this more privately, whereas Maddie and Kaylee's parents are more vocal, I want to respect their privacy and them dealing with this privately and not continuing to blast their names on the internet more than it already is. I will be reading these files in number order from how they are labeled in the case files, but I'll be referring back to dates and making sure it is very clear what part of time we are talking about, but just a heads up that sometimes we will be jumping around just because that is the nature of these case files. One final thing before we get into the video, I will absolutely not tolerate any negativity towards the two surviving roommates. This is something that I do want to touch on later on in the video when we get to a point where we're discussing this and we're talking about their interviews, but I will not tolerate any negativity towards them. Quite frankly, I am disgusted with anybody who suggests that they had any involvement in this. They are just as much victims in this because of the trauma that they've been through from losing their roommates, their close friends, and being in such a horrible situation. So if anyone has anything negative to say about either of the two roommates, your comments will be deleted and I will be blocking you. As usual, if you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Click the subscribe button down below and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I post every Sunday and most Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. Without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Moscow Police Department. Name, Corbin Smith. On 11/13/2022, at about 1200 hours, I responded to 1122 King Road in reference to possible homicide victims. Officer Nunez had arrived on the scene and found a total of 4 deceased individuals. Officer Nunez informed other units he believed this to be a homicide. When I arrived, I entered the residence and went to the second floor. I observed a female wearing a sweatshirt and underwear lying in the middle of the bedroom floor covered in blood. I observed deep lacerations indicative of defensive wounds on the female's hands. The female was surrounded by blood on the floor. I observed a male lying on the bed. The male appeared to have suffered from stab wounds and a laceration to the neck. The male was covered in blood and the bedding around him was soaked in blood. In a third-floor bedroom, I observed 2 females lying in bed which appeared to have been stabbed to death. The female laying on the left half of the bed, as I looked at it from the doorway, was unrecognizable. Her face was completely disfigured and was stabbed several times. I was unable to comprehend exactly what I was looking at while trying to discern the nature of the injuries. The second female on the right half of the bed had multiple stab wounds. The comforter was soaked in blood and a pool of blood was still present. I was assigned to hold security at the rear slider door. This was the alleged point of entry of the suspect. I observed very large footprints in the snow. I used a tape measure and the shoe size measured approximately 13.5 to 14 inches. The footsteps went to and from the rear slider door. I observed the trail of footsteps headed away from the slider, then turn right, around a stump in the backyard, and lead toward the front of the house. I observed a set of small handprints on the window to the east of the slider. The screen to this window appeared damaged and was lying on the ground. I located smudged fingerprints on the glass slider door. There was a discarded black backpack in the backyard. I photographed these items and attached them to the case. I maintained rear security detail until I was relieved by Officer Warner. The only person to enter from this point was Captain Lanier at about 15:27 hours. Moscow Police Department. Name, Eric Warner. On 11/13/2022, at approximately 11:58 hours, I responded to a report of an unconscious person at 1122 King Road. Dispatch advised a female was passed out from intoxication and not waking up. Dispatch advised there was a male seen in the room with the female last night. A short time later, dispatch advised the female was not conscious and not breathing. As I arrived, Officer Nunez advised over the air it appeared to be a homicide. I saw a small group of females outside the home in the parking lot. One female advised their roommate was on the second floor and needed help. I went to Officer Nunez's location at the west bedroom on the second floor and passed a male in the living room, later identified as H.J. H.J. is Hunter Johnson, who has spoken out and is in the recently released Prime documentary telling his story, so I will be referring to him as his name as he has publicly come out and shared his story. Officer Nunez advised the female and male in the bedroom had blood on them and appeared to be beyond help. I walked out of the bedroom towards Johnson and saw a clean steak knife on a beer pong table. I pointed out the knife to Nunez. Johnson said he got the steak knife from the kitchen because he arrived and saw a female on the bedroom floor covered in blood and did not know if there was anyone else present in the room. Johnson said he checked the room with the knife for protection. Officer Nunez and I walked to the first floor entrance with Hunter. I asked the females and Hunter if there was anyone else in the apartment, and they did not know. I told Officer Nunez the home was not secure, and we started the process of clearing it. On the third floor in the southeast bedroom, I saw 2 clothed females lying on a bed on their backs who appeared to be deceased. One female on the left side of the bed in relation to the bedroom door had an extreme amount of lacerations to her face and upper body, which made her unrecognizable. The other female had multiple lacerations to her upper body and some blood on her face. I walked to the far side of the bed to determine if the female on the right was beyond help. I saw the female's leg was off the edge of the bed and it had lividity. Once I noticed the lividity in the female's leg, I backed out of the room. Lividity referring to blood pooling at a location when someone is deceased. Officer Nunez and I checked the rest of the third floor and saw it was clear. There was a poodle in the west bedroom on the bed, which was later taken to the Humane Society by LCSO. After clearing the home, I briefly interviewed Johnson. Johnson said he was at his apartment, blank, and his girlfriend, E.A., Emily Allen, who was also in the Prime documentary, received a phone call from one of the girls who lived at 1122 King Road. Johnson said Allen was called by one of the residents who said they could not wake the female on the floor. Johnson said he came over to the home at approximately 11:55 hours. Johnson said he saw the female on the floor in the bedroom and did not see the male on the bed, who he identified as Ethan, before grabbing the knife. Johnson said he entered the bedroom and checked the female's pulse and found none. Johnson said he did not check Ethan and left the home. I thanked Johnson for talking with me and told him he could go stand with Allen, who was with the other residents in front of the home. I stood by at the front door and started the crime scene log at 12:15 hours. Sergeant Gunderson relieved me for approximately 3 minutes so I could go get my gloves during my time at the front door. At approximately 15:02 hours, I was relieved by Officer Rosinski, who took possession of the crime scene log and returned to the station. At approximately 15:28 hours, I came back to the scene and relieved Officer Smith, who was standing at the rear sliding glass door, which was found open when officers arrived. I remained at the back door until I was relieved by Officer Nunez at approximately 16:28 hours. Moscow Police Department, Mitch Nunez. On 11/13/2022, at approximately 11:56 hours, I responded to an unconscious subject at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. Upon my arrival, I found a large gathering of people in the parking lot immediately north of the 1122 King Road residence. 1122 King Road is a white 3-story single-family residence with multiple bedrooms. The 1122 designation is located directly above the front door facing north. I was directed to a bedroom on the second floor by Hunter Johnson in the northwest corner to locate the unresponsive female. Upon entering the room, I observed a female lying supine on the floor next to a bed. According to DM Dylan Mortensen, one of the roommates, this female was likely Kaylee J. Gonzalez. We'll put an asterisk in that because that is later corrected. Dylan also lived at 1122 King Road. I observed dried blood surrounding Kaylee's body and signs of cutting trauma to her face. Kaylee was covered in so much blood I wasn't able to immediately discern where any additional injuries would have likely been. Kaylee was apparently deceased due to her pale skin color, rigid body tone, and apparent blood loss. On the bed in the same room I observed Kaylee, I observed a male lying supine on the bed. According to Dylan, the male was likely Ethan J. Chapin. Dylan said Ethan was commonly at the residence. I observed blood covering portions of Ethan's legs surrounding his body into the bed sheets and drops of blood on the wall near Ethan's head. As I backed out of the room, Hunter showed me a kitchen knife and said that he had it in his possession. I told Hunter to leave the knife and go back down the stairs to the front entrance. Officer Warner and I moved to visually clear the residence for any suspects or additional victims. On the third floor, Officer Warner and I found 2 additional apparently deceased females, both lying supine in a bed. This bedroom was in the southwest corner of the third floor, according to Dylan. According to Dylan, these 2 females were likely Xana A. Kernodle and Madison W. Mogan. Again, put a pin in that. One female showed an apparent traumatic injury to her face due to the basic facial structure being unrecognizable. Both females showed very pale skin. Both females were covered in dried blood and apparently deceased. After the residence was deemed safe, Officer Warner and I exited the residence to secure it and the immediate area to include the parking lot immediately to the north of the residence. I walked outside and began interviewing Dylan. Dylan told me at approximately 0400 hours she heard a voice scream and believed it to be Kaylee's. Dylan said she heard Kaylee scream and announce there was somebody inside the residence. Dylan said she could hear Kaylee run from the third floor down the stairs to the second floor into the northwest bedroom. Dylan said she locked herself in her bedroom and continued to hear a commotion. Dylan said eventually she stopped hearing a struggle and heard a male voice say, "You're going to be fine, I'm going to help you." Dylan said she did not recognize the male's voice. Dylan said after a few minutes she peeked out of her bedroom and observed a male described as approximately 6 feet tall, slim build, with a black ski mask, leave the second floor patio area. This patio door was likely left open as it was found open upon my arrival. I interviewed an additional roommate, Bethany Funkel, who told me she was at the residence during the commotion. Bethany said she was on the second floor in the living room, watching The Vampire Diaries with Dylan and an unidentifiable person named Elle. Bethany said at approximately 0200 hours on 11/13/2022, Madison and Kaylee came home from a night out at the Corner Club Bar, located at blank in Moscow, Idaho. Bethany said she also believed Madison and Kaylee went to the Grub Wandering Kitchen truck that was commonly located in the 300 block of South Main Street. Bethany said she and Madison let Madison's dog out, Murphy, obviously a misunderstanding given that Murphy is Kaylee's dog, sometime between 0200 hours and 0230 hours. Bethany said during this time she observed no suspicious activity. Bethany said she returned inside while Madison was still outside with Murphy. Bethany said she went to bed around 0230 hours. Bethany said Madison came into her bedroom sometime after 0230 hours to ask if she knew where Murphy was. Bethany said she told Madison no, and Madison left. Bethany said she woke up in her bedroom, which was located on the first floor, to a sound she described as a firecracker and a flash. Bethany said she initially thought the sound was a prank. According to Bethany's phone log she showed me, Bethany called Xana at 0421 hours, Ethan at 0422 hours, Madison at 0422 hours, Madison again at 0430 hours, and then Kaylee at 0431 hours. Bethany said she never received an answer on each phone call. Bethany said she went back to sleep and woke up around 11:56 hours when 911 was called. Initially, I was told Kaylee was likely located on the second floor bedroom with Ethan. After comparing Dylan's initial statement with the other investigations officers' observations, it appeared to actually be Xana that was located on the floor of that bedroom, and Kaylee was one of the females located on the third floor room. I also observed the following vehicles in the gravel parking lot that was immediately north of the 1122 building. Silver 2015 Land Rover Range Rover with Washington license plate, registered to JS. Blue 2010 Honda Civic with Arizona license plate, registered to JK. White 2014 Chevrolet Cruze with Idaho license plate, registered to KL. Red 2011 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited with Washington license plate, registered to JC. Black 2017 Ford Explorer with Washington license plate, registered to JC. I was originally assigned to identify all of the people in the area, however, I was reassigned by Sergeant Gunderson to begin the search warrant application process. I provided the above information in the search warrant application. Before we move on, I do want to touch on, I want to make it clear in case you missed it, that he did correct himself. He was initially confused and believed Kaylee was on the second floor with Ethan and Xana was on the third floor with Maddie, but then at the end of the statement he did correct himself, and as we know, Xana and Ethan were on the same floor and Maddie and Kaylee were on the same floor. One other thing I want to touch on is obviously it says Madison's dog Murphy. Like I said when we read that part, obviously Murphy is Kaylee's dog, so I don't know if he misunderstood and thought that Murphy was Maddie's dog because Bethany said that Maddie took him out. That's not really relevant, but I do want to touch on that. And then real quick, because this might come up later regarding Murphy and some weirdness around that, the fact that Maddie, again, I'm not sure if it was Maddie or Kaylee, because it seems like he's a little bit confused with the names here, but going into Bethany's room and asking where Murphy was is interesting, but could be nothing, but I do want to mention that because we'll probably be referring back to that later. Moscow Police Department, Ryan Snyder. On 11/13 at about 1200 hours, I responded to 1122 King Road for the report of an unresponsive subject. Upon my arrival, I noticed there were several college-age subjects out front of the address. I was directed to use police caution tape to cordon off the crime scene. As I was working around the residence, I noticed the back door was open and there were footprints in the snow coming from the back door on the back porch. Officer Smith took photos of these prints with a measuring tape. He watched the backyard area to make sure no one else came into the area. I noticed there were a few footprints that left towards the west of the backyard. This portion of the backyard is connected to two other residences, 1118 King Road and 1126 King Road, both directly to the west. The footprints appeared to lead west toward King Road between the residences, but I was unable to see where the footprints went after the yards connected due to the amount of rock landscape. I also was unable to discern how old these prints were. There had not been recent snowfall. With Sergeant Gunderson, I entered the residence to continue taking photos of the scene. I entered through the bottom floor main door on the north side. I took photographs of the rooms and living area of the residence. The photos were downloaded onto a CD and booked into evidence. The photos were labeled in this report with a brief description of each photo. As I was down the road of the address near the King Road and Queen Road intersection, I was approached by a college-age male who identified himself as Jay. We know this to be Jack, Kaylee's ex-boyfriend. He informed me he lived at blank King Road, apartment blank. He stated his blank, I'm assuming this to say ex-girlfriend, Kaylee, lived upstairs at 1122 King Road, and they share a dog that was there. Jack did not appear to have any obvious wounds in his hands, as I would assume the suspect possibly would. Officer Nunez was interviewing the subjects about the situation. I asked Jack if he would wait inside Officer Nunez's police car so we could talk with him. He agreed to. I informed Sergeant Gunderson of the circumstances involving Jack. Jack later responded to the police department to be interviewed and then picked up the dog from the Moscow Humane Society shelter. I continued to canvass the area and speak with neighbors at blank blank and blank Queen Road, who stated they did not hear or see anything relevant. I spoke with subjects at blank King Road. One resident, DL, stated she was walking home from the corner club at about 0300 hours and thought she could hear music or some type of noise, but she couldn't give any clarifying information more than that due to her level of intoxication that night. I spoke with subjects at blank King Road. The majority of them stated they were out drinking at the corner club and got a ride back to their place at about 0130 hours and went to sleep at about 0200. They did not hear anything out of the ordinary. Blank King Road, blank resident, BP, stated about 0400 hours he heard a barking dog coming from the east of his residence. He believed it was a dog at 1122 King Road, as he thought that was the only dog in the area. He stated the dog sounded like it was outside and was barking for about 45 minutes until he believed someone must have let it inside at 045 when it stopped. Put a pin in that as well. B stated he had a female with him in the bed at the time, who also heard the dog barking at this time. I spoke with the residents at blank King Road. PC informed me they had a camera facing the west of the address that they believe captures a portion of the road. They first provided me with the SIM card out of the camera, however they could not get it to work and neither could I. They gave me the username and password to the camera. I informed Detective Mowry of the information and they gave me permission to access the camera footage and record the necessary surveillance video. I cleared the scene at about 1749 hours. Then at the bottom of this, there is a photo log. There are 182 evidence photos they took. It does not show the photos, just a brief description. Even if it did show the photos, I obviously would not be including them in this video. There's photos of the cars, there's photos of all around the house, the parking lot behind the house. There's photos of all the doors and looking outside from inside the doors. There's photos of all of the bedrooms on the first floor, including the bathroom, all of the bedrooms on the second floor, including the bathroom, and the kitchen, the living room couch. There's photos of the stairs from the first floor to the second floor. They did take photos of both Ethan and Xana. Photo of the knife hunter grabbed when he was assessing to see if anyone was there. Photos of the kitchen, the ajar sliding glass door in the kitchen, the windows, windowsills, stairwell to the third floor, both bedrooms, including the bathroom, photos of both Kaylee and Maddie, and various things found around the property like a medical mask and a glove. If you want to read out each individual thing, you can go to the documents officially linked to read those, but it's exactly what you would expect them to take photos of. Moscow Police Department, A. Dallinger. On November 13, 2022, at approximately 12:53 hours, I arrived on scene at 1122 King Road and spoke with Sergeant Gunderson and Sergeant Lawrence, who gave me a brief overview of the information gathered at that time. Sergeant Lawrence informed me that the Idaho State Police were going to assist in the investigation and were organizing to respond to the scene. Sergeant Lawrence responded to the police department to begin interviews. I remained on scene on the perimeter awaiting further information. Approximately 1 hour later, a male approached the scene and began speaking with Sergeant Gunderson. The male was identified as J.K., Xana's father. I overheard Jay state his daughter lived at 1122 King Road and he had been trying to get in touch with her but was unsuccessful. It was also learned Jay's daughter, J.R.K., was nearby the scene. I asked Jay if he and Jay could come to the police department to speak with me. Jay agreed and I returned to the police department. I contacted Sergeant Lawrence at the police department and asked if he had the names of the victims. Sergeant Lawrence stated he did and gave me the list. I saw one of the victims' names was Xana A. Kernodle. I then met with Jay and Jay in the interview room off of the police department lobby. Once in the room, I activated the audio and video recording equipment. I asked Jay and Jay for their information and they both handed me their Arizona driver's licenses. After writing down their information, I asked Jay what the name of his other daughter was. Jay told me her name was Xana. I then informed Jay and Jay that Xana was identified as one of the victims and that she was deceased. Both Jay and Jay became very upset and were crying heavily. I asked Jay and Jay when the last time they communicated with Xana was. Jay, Xana's sister, stated she texted with Xana on 11/11/2022 at approximately 1700 hours. The text messages were brief and not of any substance. Jay, Xana's father, said he texted Xana on 11/11/2022 at around 1540 hours and that she responded stating she was at work. Jay then told me he last spoke with Xana on the phone on 11/11/2022 at approximately 2140 hours when they spoke about going to the WSU football game. I asked Jay where Xana worked and he said at Mad Greek. I asked both Jay and Jay if Xana had mentioned anything about having any issues with anyone or anything strange occurring lately. Both Jay and Jay said Xana had not said anything. Jay said that Xana had a boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, who she had been dating for about 6 months or so. Jay said everything seemed fine with their relationship, and Jay added how he had met Ethan's parents in passing this weekend. It should be noted Jay was in town visiting as he resides in Avondale, Arizona, and it was Washington State University's Parents' Weekend. This is not specifically stated, but obviously using context clues, I do believe that Xana's sister was at Washington State University, and I know that Parents' Weekend at Idaho was the weekend before this happened, so this seems like he was just in town for that spurt for both Parents' Weekends. I asked Jay and Jay if there was anyone they wished me to contact for them, or if they wished to speak with anyone such as a member of the clergy. Both told me no. I gave them both my business card and informed them our detectives would be in contact with them in the near future. Jay and Jay then left the police department. Moscow Police Department, Aaron Morris. On 11/13/2022 at around 1300 hours, I was advised by Captain Barrett to respond to work due to a homicide investigation. I was told to remain available for calls for service at around 1630 hours. I relieved Officer Rosinski on the north side of 1122 King Road. I was stationed for scene security and helped keep a log of who entered and exited the crime scene. Officer Sturck relieved me from the north side of the residence, and I went to the south side to relieve Officer Nunez at around 1800 hours. I stood at the rear of the residence for scene security. I assisted Sergeant Blaker in putting evidence tape on the sliding glass door on the south side of the residence. The tape was to ensure no persons tried to access the scene overnight. I returned to the north side of the residence for the remainder of the night. Once ISP and investigators made their final walkthrough, the residence was secured at 2344 hours. Officer Rosenhall relieved me, and I cleared NFI. Moscow Police Department, John Lawrence. On 11/13/2022, at about 1200 hours, Captain Barrett called me and informed me there had been multiple victims of a homicide located in a residence on King Road and requested all available detectives. I called Detective Vargas and was informed she was out of town and would be back in Moscow Monday morning. I called Detective Mowry and he informed me he would be on his way shortly. I called ISP Lieutenant Mike Mooney and told him I needed assistance from ISP detectives in processing the crime scene. Lieutenant Mooney put me in contact with Sergeant Gilbertson. I briefed Sergeant Gilbertson on what I knew and he told me he would start to assemble his team. I responded to the scene where I met Sergeant Gunderson. Sergeant Gunderson informed me that the officers were dispatched to an unconscious person at 1122 King Road, and that is when they found 4 deceased college-age people in the residence. I told Sergeant Gunderson I need someone from his team to return to the police department to start writing an affidavit for a search warrant. Sergeant Gunderson asked Officer Nunez to handle that task. I then did a brief walkthrough of the residence. I entered the residence from the entrance of the north side of the building. Officer Warner, who was securing the scene, logged my entrance into the residence. I then went up the stairs and located a deceased female on the floor and a male in the bed on the west bedroom on the second floor. I climbed the stairs to the third floor and located 2 deceased females in the southeast bedroom. They were both in the bed. I spoke with Officer Smith, who was securing the residence at the south entrance for a moment, then I exited the residence through the north entrance. Officer Warner noted my departure. I do want to touch on something that was a huge question from the very beginning, and everyone was wondering why they were called for an unconscious person when obviously it was 4 deceased individuals. In the Prime documentary, I know I keep bringing this up, but there's a lot of really good information in there. Hunter Johnson was the first person to walk in and see Xana and Ethan. He told the girls to call 911 for an unconscious person because he did not want them to know what was going on yet, to freak out, to witness anything. So he saw the situation. He saw Xana and Ethan, and before the girls had a chance to go up the stairs and see it for themselves, he honestly was such a hero in doing this because he saved them from seeing such a horrible thing. He just lied and was like, there's an unconscious person, just call 911, so they wouldn't freak out, and I guess to soften the blow as much as you can. I respect him so much for that. The quick thinking and the selflessness of making sure that they did not witness what he did, because I am sure that's probably not an image that leaves your mind easily. So I want to make sure that everyone is aware of that, because I know some people were really confused about it at the beginning. I personally was confused at the beginning, but I figured it was just because we knew limited information. It doesn't specifically say that in these notes, but Hunter states it in the Prime documentary. So since it is not specifically stated in here, I want to include that to clear up any confusion and make it known that, Hunter did an amazing job at protecting the girls from seeing the horrible things that he saw. Continuing on, I returned to the police department where I met Sergeant Baker and Corporal Payne, whom I had called earlier and requested they respond to the police department. At this time, Detective Mowry was at the police department. I requested they interview the other occupants of the residence where the deceased were located. There were also several friends of the deceased who had been with the deceased the night before, and may have had information of their whereabouts and who they were with prior to the murders. Those interviews started about 13:48 hours. Those to be interviewed arrived at the police department at about 13:30 hours. I put them into the training room and provided them with drinks and snacks. At about 14:23 hours, J.K., the father of Xana, arrived at the police department. He was informed of Xana's death by Captain Dallinger. Captain Barrett informed me Ethan Chapin's family had been notified of Ethan's death. Captain Barrett asked me to take care of the death notifications for Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez. Captain Barrett provided me with the information the university had on file for Mogan and Gonzalez. There was no emergency contact information for either, so I called Kootenai County Dispatch due to Mogan and Gonzalez's home addresses being in Kootenai County. I provided M, the KCSO dispatcher, of the addresses listed with the university for Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez. M told me she had the names S and C G. I believe the C is a mistype because it's Steve and Christy Gonzalez, listed as residents of the address provided for Kaylee Gonzalez. I requested a death notification for them. I was contacted by Deputy Mitch Jan from KCSO. He asked what he could tell the parents, and I informed him we knew very little at this time. A short time later, Deputy Jan called me and told me that when he arrived to give the notification, the parents were already aware. I also provided Madison Mogan's address, and M was not able to locate anyone with the name Mogan at the address. M said she would send a Coeur d'Alene PD officer by the residence to make contact. A short time later, Officer Matt Seiches requested I call him. When I made contact with Officer Seiches, he told me S and KL, parents of Madison Mogan, were driving to Moscow about 20 minutes after my conversation with Officer Seiches. S and K representing Scott and Karen Laramie, who are Maddie Mogan's mother and stepfather. About 20 minutes after my conversation with Officer Seiches, the Laramies arrived at the police department. Captain Barrett gave the death notification. Captain Barrett requested I interview them. I spoke with Scott and Karen in the lobby interview room. They told me they had a great relationship with Madison. She got along with everyone. She had a strong relationship with her boyfriend, J.S., who lives in Boise, and that she had just gone to Boise to see him the weekend prior. Madison and Jay had been dating for about 1.5 years. Jay is from blank. I asked if there were any problems with past boyfriends, and there were none to their knowledge. I asked if Madison had mentioned any stalking behavior from anyone or anyone that made her uncomfortable, and they said that she never spoke of anything. Moscow Police Department, John Rosinski. On 11/13/22, I received a phone call advising me that there was a quadruple homicide at 1122 King Road. I arrived to the Moscow Police Department, put on my police-issued uniform, and relieved Officer Warner at the above address, who was currently holding the scene security and maintaining a log, who came in and out of the apartment at the front door, which is on the north side of the apartment house. I was on the scene for about 2 hours until I was relieved by Officer Morris, who took over my duties. The following day, on 11/14/22, I learned that a sheath was found inside the apartment. I don't know why it keeps saying apartment. The sheath was tan in color and had a Marine Corps eagle, globe, and anchor EGA symbol on the sheath. The words USMC were located under the EGA, and K-bar, spelled like K-bar, was above the EGA. I was tasked to follow up with businesses in town to see if that particular knife was sold there. I followed up with Tri-State Outfitters, Big Five Sporting Goods, Moscow Building Supply, Spence Hardware, and Walmart. Each of the above stores does not sell a K-bar brand knife. While at Walmart, I was speaking to staff member S, name listed on name tag, who was showing me the knives on display. She told me about 2 or 3 weeks ago, a white college male asked for a black ski mask that would cover his face. S was unable to provide much detail other than that he was taller than she was and maybe had a tan skin complexion. S said she advised the male that they did not have any black ski masks and only camo. S said the male then walked away. Moscow Police Department, Jacob Tesdall. On November 12, 2022, at about 2100 hours, I began an overtime shift for a plainclothes detail on the University of Idaho campus and related areas. This patrol was for minors in possession/consumption of alcohol, along with other alcohol/drug offenses. During this patrol, I and the other officer with me, Officer Rosenthal, only had our body-worn cameras. We were operating out of the Moscow Police Department Ford Fusion, which I drove throughout the entire detail. This particular department vehicle did not have a dash camera or any other recording devices. My street time conducting the plainclothes detail concluded at 03:52 hours on November 13, 2022. During this detail, Officer Rosenthal and I made several patrols through the area of King Street and Queen Road. During each patrol of the area, we traveled on the north side of 500 Queen Road, heading east. We wrapped around the building, heading south on the east side, then west on the south side of the complex. We then traveled north on the west side, turned west onto Queen Road, and proceeded to King Street. During one of the patrols in this area, while approaching the southwest corner of 500 Queen Road, I recall seeing a darker colored vehicle with taillights on. This vehicle was parked facing south on the south side of the parking lot, towards the west end. There was a short section of the parking lot which extended to the west of 500 Queen Road, south of 1122 King Street, which was where the vehicle was. Each time we patrolled this area, I drove the same route. During the final patrol, which to the best of my recollection was between 0200 and 0300 hours on November 13, 2022, as we traveled north on the west side of the apartment complex, I saw several individuals approaching the residence at 1122 King Street. During this detail, I was looking for alcoholic beverages, open alcoholic containers, and individuals who appeared to be intoxicated. I observed the individuals as I drove past, but did not see any reason to contact them for our related patrol. I recall my view of the individuals being obstructed by vehicles and brush on the east side of the parking lot for 1122 King Street. The individuals were walking close to a vehicle which was parked in the northeast corner of the lot. As I turned onto Queen Road and traveled west, I continued to view the individuals. From my recollection, there were at least 2 individuals, possibly 3. I recall one of the individuals having blonde hair. I do not recall exactly how many individuals there were, what they were wearing, or any other details, as I quickly looked for beverages in their hands and whether they were staggering from intoxication. Since we made several patrols to the area, I cannot say with 100% confidence I saw the vehicle on the same path I saw the individuals. Upon review of my radio history, I contacted 3 individuals at Blank Taylor at about 02:55 hours. To the best of my recollection, this was after exiting King Street, after seeing the individuals at 1122 King Street. We cleared this contact at 03:32 hours. Moscow Police Department, David Hathaway. On 11/14/2022, at about 22:42 hours, dispatch advised me they were forwarding a call to my cell phone. My phone briefly started to ring, but then it suddenly stopped. For some reason, the call was forwarded to voicemail before I could answer. When the voicemail came through my phone, I learned it was from J.S. The voicemail said, "Hey, how's it going? My name is J.S. My phone number is blank. I just want to make a statement to you guys because I was close friends with Maddie Mogan. I was with her at the corner club most of the night, and then after we left, we wanted to go to John's Alley, and we went and stopped at the grub truck. They got grub truck, then a car picked them up, and they left and went home. I just wanted to make a statement about unintelligible. I don't know if anything is helpful, but I was just with them for a little bit, so if I can be of any help, I would like to. Give me a call, thank you." Shortly after I got the voicemail, S called dispatch again and was successfully transferred to my phone. At about 22:46 hours, I talked to S on the phone. S essentially said the same thing he said in the voicemail. S said he was out with Maddie at the corner club until about 02:30 hours. S said several times he did not know who the other girl was that was with them that night, the other girl being Kaylee. S described the girls getting into a silver sedan after they got food at the grub truck. I confirmed S's name, date of birth, address, and phone number. I also confirmed with S he drove to his parents' house at blank blank in Boise. I asked S how long he planned to be at his parents' house, and he said he was skipping the next week of classes and would remain in Boise until after Thanksgiving break. S said he was willing to talk to a detective about his involvement with this case. S said he does not have a roommate at his Queen Road apartment, that he lives alone. Moscow Police Department, Roger Lanier. On November 15, 2022, at 09:30 hours, myself and Detective Mowry responded to the corner club at blank to contact the owner, MT. This was a prearranged meeting to view the video from the evening November 12th to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The purpose was to confirm that Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez were at the corner club, as has been reported, and try to identify individuals who were seen on the grub truck video later in the morning, specifically a male who appeared to be accompanying them. Upon arrival, T already had the video up on the screen and cued to the proper time frame. Detective Mowry began scrolling through the video, which consisted of multiple views and multiple screens that were all in time sync. We determined that Gonzalez and Mogan arrived at the corner club at 22:20 hours in a Prius-type vehicle with one other unidentified female. The vehicle was determined to be an Uber vehicle and the driver identified. Gonzalez and Mogan mingle around the bar, but spend most of their time in the front along the bar next to the left end as you face the bar. They make occasional trips to the restroom and speak to several people as they mingle. At 0:22 hours, Kaylee paid her bar tab using her credit card, which consisted of 9 Well vodka and 2 Add juice. T provided a copy of the receipt. At approximately 0100 hours, Kaylee engages in a conversation with a subject identified by bar staff as J. J.S. S was seen with Gonzalez and Mogan in the grub truck video later in the evening. This appeared to be a consensual conversation, and it appeared that they knew each other. At approximately 01:14 hours, Mogan joins in the conversation, and all three remain generally in the area of the bar near the wall. Nothing stood out during that time, and both appeared to know S. At 01:31 hours, S paid his bar tab with his credit card consisting of 5 can BTL and 2 Kamikaze. After paying, he walked to the back of the bar, went into the restroom, came back out, retrieved his coat, and came back to an area near the exit where Gonzalez and Mogan were waiting. S waited in the background while the girls finished conversing with others, then they all exited the building at 01:37 hours. The parking lot camera shows them walking away together across then out of the parking lot in a westerly direction. They were all dressed the same in the grub truck video, with S wearing a white or very light colored hoodie with a brown coat over it. He's obviously innocent, and this was the guy that everyone decided to harass because they thought he looked suspicious on the grub truck stream. We'll never understand. Yeah, not appropriate. Anyway, while reviewing the video, we also recognized JD, who was reported to be Gonzalez's ex-boyfriend. We did not track his movements in the video, but he appeared to spend most of his time at the opposite end of the business, seated with several other males. At one point, there appeared to be a brief interaction with Gonzalez that looked cordial and in passing. D left at 01:51 hours with 2 other males. Also noticed in the video was the subject seen at the grub truck video. I recognize him because of his unique sweater and long hair and beard. He was identified as HV by bar staff. He checked out at 0-100 hours using a credit card in the name of SV, showing 2 microtub. I didn't notice any interaction between V and Gonzalez or Mogan. A third subject who was seen in the grub truck video was also observed in the corner club, but we were not able to identify him. He is a stocky-build white male with brown hair, facial hair, wearing a brownish sweater. I did not observe any interaction between him and Gonzalez or Mogan. Because the video file was extremely large, Detective Mowry was unable to copy it to an external storage device. We left the business, and Detective Mowry is working on obtaining a usable copy of the video for closer review. Moscow Police Department, Danny Vargas. On November 14, 2022, I went to 1122 King Road with Sergeant Blaker to observe the scene. I walked through the house and around the outside of the residence along with other investigators looking for possible evidence. ISP investigators were on scene walking through for a second time, looking for additional evidence. I walked around the south side of 1122 King Road, up the hill and along the fence line for Blank Walenta. The backyard for Blank Walenta backs up to the backyard area of 1122 King Road. I spoke with SG at Blank Walenta and asked for his permission to look through his backyard area, which he said I could. G told me he was a person who previously called dispatch to provide information about what he observed. I told G after looking over the area and through the residence on King Road, I would come back and get a statement from him. I did not locate anything of interest in the backyard of Blank Walenta or on the hillside between 1122 King Road. I walked into 1122 King Road and looked through the house with other investigators. The following 4 evidence items were collected by ISP 3431, J. Talbot, inside 1122 King Road, on November 14, 2022, and turned over to me on scene. ISP took photos of the items in the places they were collected from. I booked the following items into Moscow Police Department evidence. A copy of the evidence property receipt relating to these items is attached electronically to the case file. Exhibit 57, rolled $2 bill located on the desk in floor 2, bedroom 1, northwest. Exhibit 58, blue powder, suspected drugs located on the desk in floor 2, bedroom 1, northwest. Exhibit 59, blood sample west wall, floor 2, living room. Exhibit 60, blood sample floor 3, bedroom 2, northwest wall. I spoke with the following people who live at Blank Walenta. My conversations with SG, MM, and TM were recorded and are attached electronically to this case file. Obviously, we do not have access to that. SG told me the following. He woke up a couple of times Saturday night. He looked at the clock, saw it was 04:17 hours, and said after about 5 minutes of waking up, he heard a dog barking outside, from the direction of 1122 King Road. G said he was going in and out of sleep, and after an hour, around 0500 hours, he still heard the dog barking outside from the direction of 1122 King Road. G said his bedroom is on the far northeast side of Blank Walenta and is closest to the backyard of 1122 King Road. G said there is a motion light outside of his window and said if it turned on, he would have noticed it. G told me he has lived in this residence since January and has not heard the dog barking outside before in the middle of the night. Again, put a pin in this. There's another person saying that they heard the dog, Murphy, barking outside. We'll come back to this. I next spoke with MM. M told me on the 13th he woke up around 0230 hours and left the house at around 0300 hours. M said he had an blank extended training day and it lasted about 12 hours. M said he finished his extended training day around 1800 hours at Buffalo Wild Wings and arrived home around 1830 hours. M said he was with approximately 20 members and did not notice anyone who should have been there not there. M did not remember hearing anything in particular when he woke up or left around 0230 and 0300 hours. M did not hear the dog barking. I next spoke with TM. T told me he did not hear a dog barking at any point. T said he had been out of bars the evening of the 12th and got home around 0230 hours. T said he sleeps with earplugs in. T said his sister, MM, mentioned she saw Madison Mogan at some point at the corner club. T provided me with his sister's phone number. Moscow Police Department, Justin Deanne. On November 15, 2022, at approximately 12:48 hours, I spoke with Blank, President R.H., about the 1122 King Road residence. I asked H if she knew the people who lived in the house. H said yes. She said they were a close group of friends who primarily hung out with themselves. I asked H if she ever went to parties at the house. H said she did a couple of times, but the parties were small. She said the roommates were a pretty tight group who didn't throw big parties. I asked if she knew about any drug use or sales from the house. H said she thought Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin may have used cocaine, but nothing big, and no one sold drugs. I asked her if she knew whether there were larger quantities of drugs kept at the residence. H said no. H then told me she was at the Corner Club on November 13th, 2022, between midnight and 0200 hours. She said Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez were also at the Corner Club during that time. H said she heard a male was kicked out of the bar because he was acting creepy towards Maddie Mogan. I asked H if she had any other details about the male or the incident. H said no. I told H to get a hold of me if she had any more information she believed would be helpful. Moscow Police Department, Roger Lanier. On November 14, 2022, at approximately 1000 hours, I responded back to 1122 King Road to conduct a neighborhood canvass in the daylight. Chief Fry was with me. We started from the rear of the residence and covered the small hill area just behind 1122 King Road. Right behind the residence, there was a small black bag that had obviously been in the weather for some time. There was nothing in it. We searched up to the parking lot of blank Queen Road, then worked southwest along the hillside below the parking lot. We searched the fence yard of blank Walenta Drive and continued west above blank King Road. From there, I was joined by Sergeant Gunderson, and we went through the south side of blank King Road, around the back, then back west between blank King Road and blank King Road. I worked over to Queen Road, going north between blank Queen Road and blank King Road, out to Taylor Avenue. We crossed the open playfield from Taylor Avenue north to Nez Pierce Drive, at the crosswalk near blank. We walked the pathway north to World War I Memorial Grove and stopped at that point. I returned to the intersection of Taylor Avenue and King Road, where I met with Chief Fry again. From that point, we proceeded east along the side of Taylor Avenue, looking at the shrubbery and around the cars parked along the curb. At the entrance to the parking lot of blank Taylor Avenue, I located a black vest laying on the grass next to the fire hydrant. The vest appeared to be weathered with leaves and debris on it. It appeared to have been there for several days. I checked the pockets and examined the vest, but did not find anything of note. As we continued to walk east along the south side of Taylor Avenue, I noticed a large amount of trash and various items on the grass and in the bushes, including various glass and plastic bottles, pipes of various types, some articles of clothing, such as a t-shirt and underwear, men's and women's, and various papers and litter. All appeared to have been in the area for several days or weeks, and I did not determine any evidentiary value for the items I saw. Moscow Police Department, John Rosinski. On 11/16/22, I spoke with K.N. at the substation on the University of Idaho campus. I asked Kay if she had any special relationships with any of the victims, and Kay said she was really good friends with Xana Kernodle and met Xana freshman year. Kay said she was also close friends with Kaylee Gonzalez and met her freshman year during recruitment. Kay said she knew Kaylee the best. I asked Kay if Kaylee hung out or associated with anyone with violent tendencies. Kay said no and expressed she was confused about the incident because what she saw on the news. Kay said Kaylee mainly stuck together with her roommates, Xana, Bethany, Madison, Dylan. Kay said that Kaylee also hung out with the King girls, which were JT, NF, ED, and AV. I asked Kay if Kaylee was involved in using illegal substances, and Kay said, just coke probably. I asked Kay if she saw Kaylee doing cocaine, and Kay said no, but she knew Xana was pretty into it. Detective Deanne asked if Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was into cocaine, and Kay said she did not know. Kay said she did not know Ethan that well. Detective Deanne asked if drugs were being sold from the house or if drugs were more used for parties. Kay said that they were used but not sold. Detective Deanne asked if there were large quantities of drugs at the house, or if the house was known as a drug house, and Kay said no. I asked Kay if Kaylee ever mentioned about having a stalker or having concerns about anyone, and Kay said no. Kay also said Kaylee never mentioned anything to the girls. Kay asked if we saw the Twitch stream. I asked Kay what she saw on the stream, and she mentioned there were 2 guys. I asked Kay if she recognized the 2 guys, and Kay said she did not. Kay said her friend PC and G were at the grub truck and saw Kaylee and Madison. Kay said P mentioned that 2 males were being weird. I asked Kay if she or anyone recognized anyone from the grub truck stream, and Kay said no. I asked Kay if she was familiar with the fraternity members of blank, and she said yes. I asked Kay if there was anything mentioned why the males were labeled as weird. Kay said she thought one of the males nudged the other male like, "Oh, those are your girls, go and get them." Kay said that P would be worth talking to because she was there during the time. I asked Kay if P spoke with Kaylee, and Kay said she might have said hi, but wasn't sure. Kay also mentioned that ZM hung out with Kaylee and Madison all night at the Corner Club. I asked Kay if any of the victims had any issues with anyone, and Kay said that Kaylee was unproblematic and peaceful. Kay said she can't imagine someone with violent tendencies around her. Kay said she felt the same way about Madison. Kay said, if anything, maybe Ethan and Xana. I asked if Ethan and Xana associated with violent people. Kay said this because Kay said that Xana and Ethan were more outgoing and hung out with different friend groups. Detective Deanne asked if Kaylee or Madison recently had a boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. Kay said Kaylee dated a guy named JD, for a couple years, and Kaylee and Jay were high school sweethearts. Kay said Jay was a really nice person. Kay said she spoke to Kaylee a couple days before the incident, and Kaylee said once she graduated she was looking for an apartment in Texas. Kay said Kaylee met a guy from Texas that is already living in Texas, and they were going to be roommates. I asked Kay if Kaylee and Jay were still together when Kaylee mentioned that to her, and Kay said no, that they were already broken up. Kay said that Jay mentioned that Kaylee attempted to call Jay around 0300 hours, asking if he was up. Kay said she didn't think that Jay replied to Kaylee because he thought it was some type of booty call. Detective Deanne asked how they knew that Kaylee attempted to reach out to Jay, and Kay said because Jay told them. Kay said she thought that they found out after people were asking Jay if he knew anything about what happened. Detective Deanne asked if Madison had a boyfriend, and Kay said yes, and they call him S, and said she thought his first name was Jay. Kay said they are still together. Kay said she does not think they had problems, and S was a good guy. Detective Deanne asked what he looked like, and Kay said S was short, maybe 5'7", and balding. Kay said he had brown hair and was skinny. Kay thought he lived in Coeur d'Alene. Kay said B was Madison's little. Kay said Kaylee and Madison were the closest out of all the roommates. Detective Deanne asked if D had a boyfriend. Kay said yes. Kay said his name was QK and lived in Boise. Kay said that Q was nice and hardworking. Kay said Q had epilepsy and was not a violent person. Kay said she was not aware of any issues between roommates. I asked if Kaylee hung out with any other males. Kay said Kaylee was talking to a guy named MB, who was a member of blank. Kay said they had a sexual relationship and would hook up here and there. Kay described M to be over 6 feet, brunette, and medium build. Kay said he was serving as vice president to blank. I asked Kay if there was anyone else Kaylee spent time with, and Kay said no, unless Kaylee met someone at the bar that night. Kay did not know if Kaylee met anyone in particular, but heard a male got kicked out for being creepy towards Madison. Kay said J or Z could probably have more info because they were also at the bar. Kay said the last time she spoke to Kaylee was about 1700 hours on 11/13/2022. Kay said Kaylee showed up with all of Kaylee's roommates at her apartment, the Whites, sometime between 1430 and 1500 hours. Kay said they left sometime between 17 and 1800 hours. I told Kay I was aware of a social media post of all the roommates pictured together, and Kay said that was at her apartment. I asked Kay if she had been over to Kaylee's house before. I asked if people usually use the Wi-Fi, and Kay was unsure. Kay said they usually leave their doors unlocked and everyone knows it's a blank out of house. I asked why Kaylee lived in a house with a different sorority, and Kay said that Kaylee and Madison have been best friends for several years, and spoke about living with each other. Kay said that Kaylee was still close with her freshman/sophomore friend group. Moscow Police Department, Lawrence Mowry. On November 16, 2022, I applied for and was granted the following warrants for the cell phone providers serving the area around 1122 Kings Road in Moscow, Idaho: AT&T, Verizon Wireless, T-Mobile, and Inland Cellular. Moscow Police Department, Lawrence Mowry. On November 15, 2022, I received an email from SG, Steve Gonzalez, the father of Kaylee Gonzalez. He stated he had access to some of Kaylee's messages and phone calls. Steve stated he would have blank A contact me about those files. I was able to speak to A, and she sent me various files, including an image from the Spokesman Review showing a camera on a nearby residence, text messages between Kaylee and JD, text messages between Kaylee and her Uber driver, E, a recent phone call list, and a video from the Grub Truck Twitch.tv feed. I attached these files to the case file. The communication between Kaylee and D was located on D's phone. Examination and Twitch feed was previously downloaded. In the image showing the camera, it was found that the residence was at blank King Road. The SD card from the camera was brought to Moscow Police Department, but the file system of the card was not recognized by any of the forensic computers. The card was returned to the owner and reinstalled into the camera. On November 17, 2022, Officer John Rosinski recontacted the owner of the camera, PC, via phone. C stated she was out of town but sent a video to Officer Rosinski showing a figure walk to the dumpster and appear to look inside. To preserve any potential evidence on the camera, I asked C if we could seize the entire device, including the SD card, to which she stated yes. C stated she would not be back in Moscow until approximately November 28, 2022. I directed C to contact me when she returns to her residence, at which time I will attempt to connect the camera back to her Wi-Fi router and view the camera from the device. On November 18, 2022, I logged into the Uber law enforcement portal and submitted an exigent preservation request for any location data associated with the Uber driver named EG, with the phone number of blank. Due to the nature of the investigation, Uber recommended an exigency request for the preservation. On the screenshot received from AG, it showed messages which appeared to be from G's phone between Kaylee Gonzalez and himself. The name of the recipient is Kaylee Uber. It is unknown if G was on duty with Uber at the time of him picking up Gonzalez and Maddie Mogan. Uber stated if the driver was on duty, it would show the location of the vehicle. If the driver was not on duty, Uber would not have the data. I was informed by Uber customer service that this is common if the driver provides personal transportation services. At 14:34 hours, I received an email from Uber stating they received my request. I received an email at approximately 16:17 hours from Uber, which contained files regarding the Uber logs of EG. The record showed his location up until approximately 01:15 hours, where it appears no other information is found. G goes off duty. These records were attached to the case file. No warrant was requested or returned, as Uber provided the data via the exigent request. I don't remember if it was in the Prime documentary or if I saw this somewhere else, but it was mentioned that this Uber driver apparently is kind of known in the area, and people would frequently message him for rides because they knew him and he was trusted rather than getting a stranger. I don't think this is abnormal at all, especially for a small town. So in case anyone's wondering why he picked them up off duty, that's why. On November 13, 2022, I was informed of a possible surveillance camera located at blank King Road. Corporal Ryan Snyder had spoken with one of the residents at this location, PC, who had a camera using the Home Eye Pro app on the porch of their dwelling. Corporal Snyder provided me with the username and password for the Home Eye Pro account associated with C. I asked Corporal Snyder if this video was stored on a cloud-based system for me to view, or if C could download a copy of the video. I was provided a 32GB SD card from the camera, but the file format was not recognized by any of my forensic computers and prompted me to format the disk. Corporal Snyder informed me C could screen capture the video from her phone and the card was returned to C to enable her to assist in the acquisition of the data. On November 17, 2022, I requested the assistance of Officer John Rosinski to recontact C and see if she could provide the video from this camera. Officer Rosinski contacted C, who stated she was in Boise, Idaho until November 28, 2022. Officer Rosinski, C, sent him a video of a male subject walking by the camera at approximately 03:20 hours towards the dumpster, and I spoke to C and requested permission to remove the camera from the residence, and she consented. In reviewing the data, I found over 13,000 individual images from the card. They appear to be individual video frames from the camera. While attempting to view the data on the card, I received a forwarded email from CN, whose sister, MK, resides at the residence. The email stated that he was viewing the video remotely when Officer Morris removed the camera. He stated he saw a suspicious vehicle in the area and was concerned with the video footage stored on the device being overwritten. I was then put in touch with TL, another resident at blank King Road. L stated she would be back in Moscow at approximately 2000 hours. I met with L at her residence and asked again if she would be willing to assist in recording screen captures on her phone from the device. I explained to L I would replace the camera, gather the information, and then take the camera as evidence. I also explained to L I need to take the wireless router since the camera was already linked to the Wi-Fi network. L stated she would consent and allow both items to be seized. I reinstalled the camera in the light socket and it powered on. I was able to watch as L accessed the footage on the camera during this time. The camera showed a vehicle entering the area at approximately 03:56 hours, leaving at a high rate of speed at approximately 04:20 hours. L provided the videos to me. I uninstalled the camera and seized the wireless router. Both items were then taken back to the Moscow Police Department as evidence. On November 19, 2022, while reviewing the videos located at 0356 and 0420, it appeared the vehicle left the area and may have traveled to Walenta Drive. However, the video stopped. In an attempt to see further and gain perhaps a better resolution, I reconstructed the wireless network the camera operated on by powering on the wireless router. I downloaded the HomeEye Pro app on my work phone. I was able to use the app and download the video clips. These clips included audio which were not part of the screenshots completed and were able to capture a longer duration. In the clips, the vehicle's exhaust and acceleration can be heard, as well as seeing the vehicle leave at a high rate of speed on Walenta Drive. After capturing the clips, I disconnected the camera and Wi-Fi router and placed them into evidence. The videos were placed onto a DVD and placed into evidence. Moscow Police Department, John Rosinski. On 11/15/22, at about 13:48 hours, I spoke with PC on the phone. P said she was good friends with Kaylee Gonzalez, but was also friends with Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin. P said she was a member of the sorority blank. P is currently a junior at the University of Idaho. P said she was not aware of anyone that Kaylee associated with that had violent tendencies. P said she was not aware of Kaylee being involved in drugs in any way. P said she knew people party with drugs, but doesn't know of Kaylee or any of her other roommates being involved in drugs. P said she did not know if drugs were being sold from their residence. P said she was at a party earlier in the day at a friend's apartment at the Whites. P said at the apartment she saw Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. P said they were all just hanging out and there were other people there as well. P said there was nobody of concern at the apartment and everyone present was a familiar person. P said she last saw Kaylee at the grub truck. P said she arrived after Kaylee and said Kaylee was there with Madison Mogan. P said Kaylee's demeanor was good and they struck up a conversation. P said Kaylee seemed really happy and said Kaylee and Madison were laughing. P said she did not have a conversation with Madison, only Kaylee. P said they did not mention what their plans were after the grub truck. P said Kaylee and Madison seemed a little intoxicated and believed they came from the club. P said Kaylee seemed coherent and was not stumbling or slurring her words. P did not know if Kaylee and Madison showed up to the grub truck with anyone. P said she later watched the Twitch video and it appeared someone showed up with Kaylee and Madison, but she did not recognize the individual. P said her friends did not either. P said after Kaylee got her food, she saw Kaylee and Madison walk in the direction of campus. P did not see anyone follow them. P mentioned that she saw in the grub truck video someone walking in the same direction. P said she heard that there was someone concerning at the corner club. P said she heard the individual being creepy towards Madison and was kicked out. P was not aware of any other males that Kaylee spent time with. P said she knew that Kaylee had an ex-boyfriend that went to UI, but she understood that they were on good terms. P said she knew Madison had a boyfriend that graduated from UI. P did not know his name. P did not know of anyone that Ethan and Xana hung out with. P said she wished she had more to share. I thanked P for her time and concluded the interview. Moscow Police Department, Danny Vargas. On November 16, 2022, at approximately 07:45 hours, Latah County Coroner Kathy Mabbutt and I attended the 4 autopsies for Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez at the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office, blank in Spokane, Washington. The 4 autopsies were all performed by Dr. V.S. Gary Tolinson, a detective with ISP, observed 3 of the autopsies, Kernodle, Mogan, and Gonzalez, as he arrived after the autopsy for Chapin was performed. During the autopsies, the following items of evidence were collected. Kaylee Gonzalez, DNA card. 4. Right hand, wet/dry. Left hand, wet/dry. Wrist swabs. 4. Right, wet/dry. Left, wet/dry. Forearm swabs. 4. Right, wet/dry. Left, wet/dry. Foot swabs. 4. Right, wet/dry. Left, wet/dry. Ankle swabs. 4. Right, wet/dry. Left, wet/dry. Anal swabs. 1. Oral swab. 1. Vaginal swab. 1. Head hair. Nail clippings. 2. Right, left. Neck swab. 2. Wet/dry. Handbags. 2. Right, left. T-shirt, Corner Club, nasty and inebriated black. Pants, Joe Boxer, gray and black flannel. Silver earring. Sock, 1, white Adidas. SD photo card, autopsy photos. All of the above listed items were released to me by KS on 11/16/2022 at approximately 19:27 hours. Madison Mogan. DNA card, hand swabs 4, right hand wet dry, left hand wet dry. Wrist swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Forearm swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Foot swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Ankle swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Anal swab, oral swab, vaginal swab, head hair, nail clippings 2, right left, neck swab 2, wet dry, handbags 2, right left, short sleeve shirt, pink, pants, black Vandal Russell brand sweatpants, medium, silver rings 3, hair tie, black, false eyelashes 2, SD photo card, autopsy photos. All the above listed items were released to me by KS on 11/16/2022 at approximately 1938 hours. Xanacronodal, DNA card, hand swabs 4, right hand wet dry, left hand wet dry. Wrist swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Forearm swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Foot swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Ankle swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Thigh swabs 2, right wet, left wet. Anal swab, oral swab, vaginal swab, head hair, pubic hair, nail clippings 2, right, left. Neck swabs 2, wet dry. Handbags 2, right, left. Foot bag 1, left. Sweatshirt, Under Armour gray. Underwear, Calvin Klein beige, small. Trace evidence, left hand. Trace evidence from body bag. SD photo card, autopsy photos. All of the above listed items were released to me by KS on 11/16/2022 at approximately 1949 hours. Ethan Chapin. DNA card, hand swabs 4, right hand wet dry, left hand wet dry. Wrist swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Forearm swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Ankle swabs 4, right wet dry, left wet dry. Anal swab 1, oral swab 1. Penile swabs 2, wet/dry. Head hair, pubic hair. Nail clippings 2, right left. Neck swab 2, wet dry. Handbags 2, right left. Trace evidence from right hand. Necklace, bracelet. Socks 2, Puma brand, right left. SD photo card. All of the above listed items were released to me by KS on 11/16/2022 at approximately 1941 hours. Major crime prints. As part of the autopsies, major crime prints were taken from each of the victims by the Spokane County Forensic Unit. Chapin's prints were taken on 11/16/2022 and released to me by TB on 11/16/2022. Cronodal's prints were taken on 11/16/2022 and released to me by E on 11/16/2022. Mogan's and Gonzalez's prints were both taken on 11/17/2022 in the morning by CL and LE and were left at the Spokane County Medical Examiner's office with L. On 11/17, I responded to the Spokane County Medical Examiner's office to collect Mogan's and Gonzalez's prints from A. At the conclusion of the 4 autopsies, Dr. V.S. met with Kathy Mabut, Gary Tollinson, and myself and told us the following. Ethan Chapin's fatal injury was from a stab wound under his left clavicle which severed his subclavian vein and subclavian artery, and also his jugular vein was severed. Ethan only had sharp force injuries. Xanacronodal's fatal injuries were from 1 laceration in her right lung and 2 lacerations in her heart. Cronodal had 50-plus stab wounds, mostly defensive. Xana only had sharp force injuries. Madison Mogan's fatal injuries included a left lung laceration and a liver laceration. Madison only had sharp force injuries. Kaylee Gonzalez's fatal injuries included a left lung laceration, a liver laceration, 2 subdural bleeds, and a stab behind her clavicle which cut her subclavian vein and artery. Kaylee had signs of sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries, and blunt force injuries. Kaylee had 20-plus stab wounds. Dr. S. said the weapon used was not serrated, single-edged, very sharp, and said a lot of force was used by the suspect. I will be uploading Dr. S.'s final autopsy report to the case file when they are completed. On November 16, 2022, at approximately 19:55 hours, I drove from Spokane County Medical Examiner's office to the FBI office located at blank Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and met with Special Agent Brian Gunnerson. Several of the clothing items collected during the autopsies were still wet and needed to dry in evidence dryers overnight. Special Agent Gunnerson and I placed the following items in 2 separate dryers, Dryer 1 and Dryer 2, in their evidence room, and I released the items to Special Agent Gunnerson. Special Agent Gunnerson signed for the items on 11/16/2022 at approximately 21:02 hours. The items belonging to Gonzalez and Mogum were placed into Dryer 1, and the items belonging to Kernodle and Chapin were placed in Dryer 2. Dryer 1, Kaylee Gonzalez, handbags 2, right left, T-shirt, Corner Club, Nasty and Inebriated, black, pants, Joe Boxer, gray and black flannel, sock 1, white Adidas. Madison Mogan, handbags 2, right left, short sleeve shirt, pink, pants, black Vandal, Russell Brand, sweatpants, medium. Dryer 2, Xander Kernodle, handbags 2, right left, foot bag 1, left, sweatshirt, Under Armour, gray, underwear, Calvin Klein, beige, small. Ethan Chapin, handbags 2, right left, socks 2, Puma brand, right left. I transported the remainder of the evidence items back to Moscow Police Department and placed them into the evidence fridge in the Moscow Police Department evidence room. On November 17, 2022 in the morning, I drove to the FBI office located at blank, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and met with Special Agent Brian Gunnerson. I removed the dried items from the Dryer 1 and Dryer 2 and packaged them back into their original bags along with the items I turned over to Special Agent Gunnerson on 11/16/2022. I collected 2 additional items from Special Agent Gunnerson. 1 bag which contained the drop sheet, filter, and security tag from Dryer 1, and 1 bag which contained the drop sheet, filter, and security tag from Dryer 2. Special Agent Gunnerson released the items back to me on 11/17/2022 at approximately 11:28 hours. I transported these items back to Moscow Police Department. On November 17, 2022, I worked with T.S., Moscow Police Department evidence technician, and booked in all of the items collected from the autopsies into Moscow Police Department evidence. Moscow Police Department, Lawrence Maury. eBay sales warrant. November 26, 2022, I requested and was granted a warrant for eBay for the sale of the following items between January 1st, 2022 to present. ASIN blank 4938, K-bar full-size Marine Corps fighting knife, ASIN blank 4661, K-bar 1217S leather sheath, USMC logo. On November 26, 2022, at approximately 19:07 hours, I logged into the eBay law enforcement e-request system located at le.corp.ebay.com. I received an email from blank at ebay.com providing me with an internal case number of blank. On November 28, 2022, at approximately 11:05 hours, I received an email from eBay stating the files were ready to download. I logged into the portal and downloaded the files. In examining the files, eBay showed 0 purchases for the ASIN blank 4938 K-bar full-size U.S. Marine Corps fighting knife. However, in examining the files, eBay showed several user IDs associated with the sale of the ASIN blank 4661 K-bar 1217S leather sheath USMC logo. These purchases were made in Arizona, Idaho, Pennsylvania, Washington, Ohio, Wisconsin, New York, Japan, Texas, Ohio, Washington, and Arizona. No subscriber information, IP addresses, payment information, or customer records were provided. As these user IDs are associated with a knife sheath purchase before or after November 13, 2022, I am requesting the assistance of the Latah County Prosecutor's Office to apply for a warrant for the following: account information for the above-named eBay user IDs, subscriber information to include contact information, billing information, account opening date, account closing date, and any other information retained in connection with the identified accounts. Order details and purchase history for all transactions conducted by the above-named eBay user IDs or any eBay-affiliated storefront/web store, including IP addresses, information for purchases made, shipping addresses, and issuing bank card used. Payment information for payments made or facilitated by eBay to or from the above-named user IDs, including payments through eBay or eBay-supported platforms. All customers' interaction records between eBay and the above-named individuals/entities and their representatives to include call notes, call recordings, emails, and/or written correspondence. I completed the warrant return receipt and affidavit. These documents were sent to Latah County Prosecutor's Office to be returned to the court. I also emailed a copy of the receipt to eBay, blank at ebay.com, as this was the originating email address associated with the documents. On November 13, 2022, I was directed to interview potential witnesses in regards to the incidents at 1122 King Road. The following interviews were conducted at the Moscow Police Department. Interview 1. Dylan Mortensen, date of birth, blank 2003, phone number, blank, address 1122 King Road. On 11/13/2022, Dylan Mortensen was interviewed in regard to the homicide investigation at 1122 King Road. Dylan said she was a resident of the house where the incident occurred. Dylan said she was at a blank party at around 10:30 hours on 11/12/2022, where she was drinking. Dylan said she went to blank's house. Dylan said she believed she arrived at home between 0:30 hours and 0100 hours on 11/13/2022. Dee said she thought Bethany arrived home at around 20 minutes after she arrived. Dylan said she believed Maddie and Kaylee arrived home at around 0130 or 0200 hours on 11/13/2022. Dylan said up to this nothing weird happened during the night. Dylan said she and her friend, Elle, came home followed by Bethany from blank. Dylan said Elle lived at the blank house and Bethany was her roommate at the residence. Dylan said when Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez came home from the corner club at the same time and everyone went to bed. Dylan was asked about the layout of her house. Dylan said Kaylee's room was directly above her room. Dylan said she lived on the second floor and Kaylee lived on the third floor. Dylan said Kaylee and Maddie both lived upstairs on the third floor in separate rooms. Dylan said Xana lived the closest to the bathroom on the second floor and Bethany lived on the first floor. When asked about Murphy, Dylan said it was a dog owned in common between Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend, Jay. Dylan said there were no apparent issues between Kaylee and Jay. Dylan said Maddie had a boyfriend named J.S., who was in Boise at the time of the incident. Dylan indicated Xana was dating Ethan Chapin, who was in the room with her at the time of the incident. Dylan did not know of anyone who would want to hurt Ethan when she was asked. Dylan was asked if she saw any cars in the area that should not be there. Dylan said, "No, I was not really looking at that." Dylan said she woke up at around 0400 hours on 11/13/2022, where she could hear Kaylee and Murphy, the dog, dancing. Dylan said she knew it was Kaylee because she recognized her voice and could hear Murphy barking. Dylan said she heard Kaylee go upstairs and say, "There is someone here." Dylan said she thought she heard Kaylee run back down the stairs. Dylan said Kaylee sounded scared when she made this statement. Dylan said at this time she jumped up, locked the door because she did not know what else to do. Dylan said she called out Kaylee's name and did not indicate if she got a response. Dylan said she then tried to call Kaylee, Xana, and Maddie on their phones. Dylan was asked if she saw anyone come downstairs or heard anything. Dylan said, "No, I don't even know how they got in. We're usually pretty good about locking the doors and never had problems before. It was just really random." When asked again about the series of events, Dylan said she opened the door when she cried out to Kaylee, then closed the door because she was scared. Dylan said she then opened the door again and heard who she thought was Kaylee, but could have been Xana, crying in the bathroom. Dylan said she then heard a man's voice say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Dylan said it was weird because the statement was not in a nice way, and the voice was one she had never heard before. Dylan said she called out to Kaylee again, and there was no cry after, and she did not know what happened after that. Dylan said she opened the door again, and the guy is right there. Dylan described the male as approximately her height, 5'10", or a few inches taller, not skinny but athletic build. Dylan said the suspect was wearing all black with mask that covered just his forehead and goes around his face. Dylan showed with her hands the mask exposed his nose but covered the mouth area. Dylan said she believed the suspect was white but did not remember eyebrow color or what his eyes looked like. Dylan said when she saw the suspect, he saw her and just left. Dylan said she believed he was holding something near his stomach or belt line. Dylan used both hands to point straight out from her abdomen. Dylan then moved her hands apart and back together to stimulate a bulge. Dylan said this area was black in color and she thought now maybe it was a gun. Dylan said the unknown object had an arrow shape. Dylan seemed really unsure and said she was tired during the event. Dylan asked how long she believed it was from the time Kaylee said someone is here to when she saw the suspect. Dylan said she thought it was about 10 or 20 minutes. Dylan went on to say she was in and out of it and she did not fully remember the incident. Dylan was asked where the suspect was in the residence when Dylan saw him. Dylan said the suspect was between her bedroom door and the kitchen. Dylan said she remembered watching the suspect go out the kitchen door and leave. Dylan said at this time she closed her door and locked it as fast as she could. Dylan said the suspect did not walk towards her or say anything. Dylan said once the suspect left, she immediately called Bethany. Dylan said Bethany informed her she heard a sound that sounded like a firework. Dylan then said she told Bethany she called everyone and they were not answering. Dylan said she was in and out of it and believed everyone was just asleep. Dylan said she then went to Bethany's room, locked the door, and went to bed. Dylan said she woke up at around 1100 or 1200 hours and called her roommates and no one answered. Dylan said that she called Hunter. Hunter came to the residence, went upstairs, and told Dylan he needed to call law enforcement immediately. Dylan was asked if there was anything else she wanted to share. Dylan said the noise Bethany described it as a loud boom, but Dylan did not hear it. Dylan was asked if any of her roommates shared any weird experiences in the last couple of weeks, or calls or texts. Dylan said, "No, it's been all normal, nothing weird at all. Nothing really weird happens in Moscow usually." When asked if there were any altercations at the blank party, Dylan said, "No, everything was normal." Dylan mentioned again she was with Dee and Xana at the party. Dylan was asked if anyone was having sexual relationships with anyone they shouldn't be. Dylan said no. Dylan brought up the incident which occurred about a month prior. Dylan said she and Bethany remember Kaylee saw a shadow while she was taking Murphy outside. Dylan said Kaylee also mentioned when she was at blank 2 or 3 weeks prior, an individual was following her. Dylan said she also arrived home one time, and the door to the residence at 1122 King Road was found open. Dylan said she did not believe the slider door was locked the night of 11/12/2022. Dylan said she heard Murphy barking a lot around 0400 hours 11/13/2022 when Kaylee went upstairs. Dylan said she heard Murphy go outside barking as well, again with Murphy being outside. Dylan was unsure if Murphy would chase the suspect outside. Dylan said she did not remember if the suspect who ran left the slider door open. Interview 2. Hunter Johnson. Date of birth, 1999. Phone blank. Address blank. Hunter said around 1200 hours on 11/13/2022, Dylan called Emily, Hunter's girlfriend. Dylan told Emily she thought something was not right in her house. Dylan also told Emily she heard or saw a man in her house the night prior. Dylan asked Emily and Hunter to come over and make sure everything was okay because she locked herself in Bethany's room. Hunter said he was the first person to get to the residence. Hunter said he entered the code to the front door where Bethany and Dylan were in Bethany's room on the first floor. Dylan and Bethany were telling Hunter they did not know what was going on. Hunter said he went up the stairs and immediately went into Xana's room. Hunter said this was the only room he went into. Hunter said when he approached the door, it was only partially open. Hunter said when he opened it, he saw Xana and Ethan. Hunter said he initially did not realize all the blood was dried blood in the room. Hunter said he thought at first they had been drunk and left a mess. Hunter said when he stood there for a moment, he began to realize what he was seeing. Hunter said Bethany and Dylan were uncontrollably crying. Hunter said he told them to get out of the house and call law enforcement. Hunter said he then went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife from the drawer. Hunter said he then went into the room, checked the closet to make sure there was not anyone else in the room. Hunter said he checked for a pulse on both Xana and Ethan. Hunter said both of the bodies had rigor mortis and were cold with no breath or pulse. Hunter said he believed the two had been deceased for a while. Hunter said he believed he left the knife on the folding table in the living room. Hunter said Emily, Jay, and Al started to enter the house and come up the stairs. Hunter told them to get out of the residence. Hunter said this was about the time Moscow Police Department arrived on the scene. Hunter said the officer told him to stay here where he was at. Hunter said he did not know if anyone else was upstairs as he had not gone anywhere else in the house. Hunter said he had trouble comprehending what he was seeing. Hunter said he was not at the blank party the night prior. Hunter said he and Ethan were texting the night prior, 11/12/2022, by phone. Hunter said Ethan wanted him to come over, but Hunter chose not to. Hunter said he knew Ethan since fall of 2021. Hunter said he was in blank and Ethan was a member of blank. Hunter indicated Jay and Emily were in the same sorority and were roommates. Hunter said Elle, who was also present, was in the fraternity blank and was currently dating Jay. Hunter said he and Elle stayed at Jay's apartment with Emily and Jay the night of 11/12/2022. Hunter was asked when was the last time he was at 1122 King Road. Hunter indicated he was last at the residence on 11/12/2022 where he was pre-gaming for the Vandals football game. Hunter said he got to the residence at around 1200 hours or 1300 hours and left at about 1430 hours to go to a different party. Hunter said the last time Emily was at 1122 King Road was Friday, 11/11/2022. Hunter did not know of anyone who had issues with Ethan and Xana dating. Hunter estimated Xana and Ethan were dating for 8 months. Hunter said he knew Xana very well through his girlfriend Emily. Hunter said he was not very familiar with Maddie or Kaylee. Hunter allowed pictures to be taken of his phone of the conversation between him and Ethan. Interview 3. J.M., date of birth 2003, phone number blank, address blank. Jay said she texted Bethany at 11:20 hours the morning of 11/13/2022. Jay asked Bethany if she was awake. Jay said Bethany called her back at 11:49 hours. Bethany told Jay she and Dylan were in Bethany's room. Jay said Bethany was freaked out because her roommates were not answering the phone. Jay said she heard Dylan on the phone in the background saying, "I saw something." Jay said Bethany asked her to come over to 1122 King Road and pick her up. Jay said Bethany texted her while she was driving there and said Emily and Hunter were on the way as well. Jay said as she arrived, Moscow Police Department units were arriving as well. Jay said she did not go to the blank party but went to a different one instead. Jay said Bethany and Dylan came to the other party after she left blank. Jay estimated Dylan left her party at 0300 hours and Bethany left her party at about 0100 hours on 11/13/2022. Jay said she was in blank with Dylan, Elle, Bethany, and Xana. Jay said Xana and Maddie were both in blank, but they dropped out and Kaylee was in blank, but dropped as well. Jay suspected the girls dropped their respective sororities because of the issues with other girls in the houses. Jay specifically cited girls on the executive board who tell other members what to do. Jay suspected this was what they did not like. Jay confirmed she, Elle, Bethany, and Dylan were still active members in blank. Jay said the girls who were still active members of a sorority who choose not to live in the house did so because of money issues. Jay said Maddie was Bethany's big sister in the sorority house. Jay said she knew Kaylee saw a dark figure staring at her from the tree line when she took her dog Murphy out to pee. Jay said this occurred about a month ago at 1122 King Road. Jay said there had been a light-hearted talk and jokes made about a stalker in the past. Jay said all the girls were slightly nervous about it being a fact, though. Jay did not indicate any social media issues or issues between the girls who lived together. Jay said there was no issues with girls from the blank sorority at the residence at 1122 King Road. Jay said the front door had issues with locking and sometimes could be opened without a code. Jay said she did know the code to the front door. Jay said she was unsure if the residents kept the back sliding door locked regularly. Interview 4, LB. Date of birth, 2022. Phone number, blank, address, blank. Elle said he did not go to the blank party. Elle said he went to sleep at around 2000 hours, 11/12/2022, at Jay's apartment on Taylor Avenue. Elle said he woke up at around 0200 or 0300 hours. Elle said he, Jay, and Emily were up talking in the living room of the apartment until about 0500 hours on 11/13/2022. Elle indicated Hunter was present but not awake during this time. Elle said they all went to bed at this time and woke up again around what he thought was 0900 hours. Elle said Hunter and Emily came to the room where he and Jay were. Elle said Dylan had called Emily at around 1000 hours and sounded scared. Elle said Dylan told Emily someone had been in her house last night. Elle said Dylan and Bethany ran downstairs and locked themselves in a room. Elle said Dylan informed them they did this because of her seeing someone in the house, and Dylan could only see his nose and his chin. Elle said Dylan was freaking out and wanted them to come over to 1122 King Road. Elle said he walked with Emily and Jay to 1122 King Road from Jay's apartment on Taylor Avenue. Elle said Dylan and Bethany walked to the house crying. Elle said Hunter arrived at the residence first because he left before them. Elle said he went into the downstairs door and Hunter told him not to come up the stairs. Elle said he did not know Ethan very well. Elle said he did not recall any talk between Xana and Jay about boy issues. Elle said he did not see anything on social media. Elle said he recalled an incident from about a month prior where Dylan said there was a guy stalking her. Elle said he did not hear anything from the night prior. My interviews were video recorded and have been uploaded to a case file. Moscow Police Department, Lawrence Mowry. On November 13, 2022, I was directed to interview potential witnesses in regards to the incidents at 1122 King Road. During this process, I was tasked with extracting data from the following phones: Dylan Mortensen, Bethany Funkel, J.D., Emily Allen's M.O. I received signed consent forms from Mortensen, D., Allen, and C. I was informed by Corporal Brett Payne Funkel provided verbal consent for her phone to be extracted. The phones were extracted using the following forensic software: UFED Celebrate version number 7580172. Magnet axiom version number 650-32778. Upon completion of the extractions, the phones were returned to their owners as promptly as possible. The data extracted was saved to a computer located in the secure forensic computer lab at Moscow Police Department. A forensics examination on the phones will be completed at my earliest convenience. Moscow Police Department, Brett Payne. At approximately 1600 hours on 11/13/2022, Sergeant Blaker and I responded to 1122 King Road to assist with scene security processing. Upon our arrival, the ISP forensic team was on scene and preparing to begin processing the scene. Officer Smith was one of the initial responding officers to the incident, advised he would walk me through the scene. Officer Smith and I entered 1122 King Road through the bottom floor door on the north side of the building. Upon entering, I observed a small bedroom on the west side of the bottom floor. The door was ajar, and I could see a bed with covers and several other miscellaneous personal items strewn about it. The room did not appear to have been occupied by anyone, as I did not see any clothes inside. I followed Officer Smith down the hall where there was a small bathroom. Next to the small bathroom to the east was what I later learned was a utility closet. This closet had a pin code style lock and was secured. I looked into the bedroom on the east side of the bottom floor, which I later learned belonged to Bethany Funkel. The room had normal clothes and personal items about, but otherwise did not seem out of the ordinary. Officer Smith and I then walked upstairs to the second floor. The stairs ended in a small living room. There was a sectional-style couch along the east and south wall of the room. There was also a small TV in a void on the northeast corner of the room. I also saw a black backpack on the floor just east of the top of the stairs. Officer Smith then directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned was Xana Kernodle's room. Just before this room, there was a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway. As I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Kernodle's, laying on the floor. Kernodle was laying on her back, with her feet facing the east and her head facing west. Kernodle had thong-type underwear on and a gray sweatshirt. There was a large amount of blood on the floor around Kernodle as well. I could see numerous wounds on Kernodle's arms, hands, and face, which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Just next to Kernodle on the west wall was a small white nightstand, which appeared to have been moved as it was pushed against the wall at an odd angle. There was blood on this nightstand in various locations. The bed in Kernodle's room was situated on the south wall of the bedroom, with the head of the bed appearing to be towards the west wall. I could see a male, later identified as Ethan Chapin, laying on his back in the bed with some type of blanket pulled over his midsection. Chapin's body was at an angle on the bed so that his head was up against the south wall and his feet were hanging off the bed on the north side. I could not clearly see the wounds to Chapin's head and neck area, but could see a very large amount of blood on the bed, as well as what appeared to be blood spatter on the wall next to Chapin's head and neck. I also noticed 2 large cuts in the back of Chapin's legs. The wounds appeared to be deep into the tissue, but were difficult to see due to Ethan's body position. Officer Smith then took me through the house and pointed out Dylan Mortenson's bedroom, which was situated on the southeast side of the second floor of the house. Mortenson's bedroom door opened to the kitchen area as well as a staircase which led to the third floor of the house. Upon my brief visual inspection, Mortenson's room was disheveled but did not appear to have any blood or evidence of a struggle within. I then followed Officer Smith upstairs to the third floor of the residence. The third floor consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee Gonzalez's room. This room appeared neat and picked up. The sheets on the bed were pulled back in a manner which suggested someone had been laying in bed and then gotten out of it. Officer Smith then pointed out a small bathroom on the east side of the third floor. This bathroom shared a wall with Madison Mogan's bedroom, which was situated on the southeast corner of the third floor. As I entered this bedroom, I could see 2 females in a single bed in the room. The bed was situated along the north wall of the bedroom, and both females, later identified as Mogan and Gonzalez, were laying on their backs, with their heads toward the east and their feet towards the west, which was also the direction of the only door in the room. Both Gonzalez and Mogan had numerous visible stab wounds and were covered in a significant amount of blood. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Mogan's right side when viewed from the door. I remained in the room for a moment and then proceeded back outside. I remained on the scene and conducted several more thorough walkthroughs of the scene with ISP forensic team, the Latah County coroner, and the Latah County prosecutor. Upon receipt of the search warrant prepared by Officer Nunez, the ISP forensic team, led by Detective Sergeant Darian Gilbertson, processed the scene and collected an initial 56 pieces of evidence. The ISP team turned these items over to me that evening, and I transported them to the Moscow Police Department temporary evidence storage. On the morning of 11/14/2022, I booked the items into Moscow Police Department evidence with the help of the evidence custodian, T.S. The items that they collected and placed into storage right away, the 52 items they just mentioned, are 2 foot casts, 5 fingerprint lifts, a cell phone, laptop, another laptop, knife sheath, white blanket, blue phone, vape pen, another fingerprint lift, a steak knife, 17 through 43 samples for blood swabs, a disposable camera, a laptop, another laptop, latex gloves, laptop, iPad, bedding packaging, and game bags. Moscow Police Department, Brett Payne. At approximately 1700 hours on 11/24/2022, I took the Moscow Police Department school car, a silver Ford Fusion, and drove the route of the suspect vehicle. I drove 2 separate routes in front of the camera located at Blank Ridge Road, once westbound on Ladder Avenue, then twice on Ridge Road, southbound and northbound. I advised the command post of the time of these runs and requested video from the point of contact at Blank Ridge Road in order to compare the color of the test vehicle to that of the suspect vehicle. Once I completed these runs, I drove to 1122 King Road and walked the route MM stated she took while on foot near the house on 11/13/2022. I also parked the Moscow Police Department school car on Queen Road immediately to the east of 1122 King Road in order to observe the effects of the orange-tinted streetlights located in the area. The lights appeared to make the silver vehicle look tanner in color than it would under the white streetlights. I also walked down and spoke to Officer Tesdale, who was providing scene security at this time. I spoke to Officer Tesdale for a moment and then began to walk back to my patrol vehicle. As I did so, I noticed a black glove laying in the parking lot approximately 25 feet from the front door. The glove was laying palm up and appeared to have been laying in that spot for a couple of days as it did not have any snow on it. I nudged the glove with the toe of my boot and found it was frozen to the ground. I asked Officer Tesdale for rubber gloves and his flashlight. Upon further examination, there appeared to be dark fluid-like substance on the glove. The substance's color and consistency was consistent with dried blood. Officer Tesdale provided me with an evidence bag, and I collected the glove as evidence. The glove is a Polar Penguin brand glove with rubberized palm and fingers. This type of glove is often used for concrete work. I brought the glove back to Moscow Police Department and booked it into Moscow Police Department evidence for submission to the state lab. The videos of the vehicle test runs were later collected and added to the FBI video files for this case. Moscow Police Department, Lawrence Mowry. On December 4th, 2022, I found I had received an email forwarded to me from RM of Cutco Corporation, the parent company of the K-Bar knives. The email was from Michael Douglas of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Special Agent Douglas assisted in the service of the warrant to K-Bar. The email contained a single file with data requested pursuant to the warrant served on K-Bar. The file was downloaded and saved onto a computer located in the Secure Computer Forensic Lab, located at Moscow Police Department. In examining the file, I located numerous individuals and companies who had purchased products matching descriptions of the warrant. In the state of Idaho, the following sales of 1,217 knives were located. This is another one I'm going to let you look up if you want to see the specific details of the dates and states, because there's so many of them. Full names are blocked out, but as for the initials, looking through them, none of them are BK. November 15, 2022, I contacted Detective David Taylor of the Coeur d'Alene Police Department with a request for agency assist. I requested assistance unlocking the cell phones of Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, the victims in this case. I emailed Detective Taylor a copy of the signed warrant describing the phones as being searchable. On November 16, 2022, the phones were transported to the CDA Police Department for a forensic brute force attempt to unlock them. However, Detective Taylor stated he was not able to extract any information from the locked phones, and the phones were not supported for the brute force PIN code extraction. The phones were then returned to the Moscow Police Department on November 17, 2022. I then asked for assistance from Captain Tyson Barrett in attempting to gain PIN codes from family members to access the data on the devices. I was provided PIN codes I was provided PIN codes for Mogan, Kernodle, and Chapin, which successfully unlocked the devices. PIN codes provided for Gonzalez's phone did not unlock the device. On 3 devices I was able to unlock, I performed advanced logical extractions on the devices at Moscow Police Department. A report for each device will be completed separately. On November 25, 2022, I went to the Walla Walla Police Department and spoke with Detective Chris Ruckert. Detective Ruckert stated her forensic tools would be able to support full file system extractions on the unlocked devices and will be able to complete limited extraction on Gonzalez's locked phone. I left the phones with Detective Ruckert to be extracted. On November 28, 2022, Detective Ruckert informed me that the phone extractions were complete and ready to be picked up on November 29, 2022. Detective Justin Deanne picked up the phones and returned them to the Moscow Police Department. I received the 4 devices and placed them in the secure computer forensic lab. The extracted data was copied to the forensic computers and verified by hash values. Moscow Police Department, A. Dallinger. On December 7, 2022, at approximately 1000 hours, I was assisting with the packing and moving of personal belongings out of the residence at 1122 King Street. Captain Barrett and I were in the process of packing items from Kaylee Gonzalez's room on the 3rd floor. Inside the closet, I was removing items from a black plastic 3-drawer organizer. In the bottom drawer, I located a Kodak Power Flash, disposable camera, and GoPro camera in a small black zippered pouch. I was unaware if these items had been located during any of the previous searches of the residence, so I took custody of them until I could learn that information. I advised Captain Barrett of the items and showed him. After completing the packing and moving of personal belongings, I brought the GoPro and the Kodak camera to the police department. Prior to leaving the residence, I also took possession of the keys to all the vehicles belonging to the deceased. Once back at the police department, I locked the items in a temporary storage locker in the evidence processing room. I later contacted the investigative team and learned the memory card from the GoPro was seized during a previous search of the residence, so the camera itself was of no evidentiary value. I was told the Kodak disposable camera should be booked into evidence. On December 8, 2022, I met with property coordinator T.S. S assisted me in booking the Kodak camera into evidence. I then took the vehicle keys and the GoPro camera to the city shop, where the rest of the personal belongings from the 1122 King Street residence were being stored. I placed the GoPro camera into one of the boxes containing Kaylee Gonzalez's belongings. I left the vehicle keys, contained in a Ziploc bag, also in the storage area with other belongings. Moscow Police Department, Tyson Barrett. On 12/7/2022, at about 09:45 hours, I met with Moscow Police Department command staff members at 1122 King Road to package and remove personal items of the victims. Captain Dallinger and I packaged the belongings in Kaylee Gonzalez's room. I worked along the north and west sides of the room. Captain Dallinger worked along the south and east sides. While I was packaging items, I noticed $125 in cash in the dresser. One $100 bill, one $10 bill, 2 $5 bills, and 5 $1 bills. Captain Dallinger and I both counted the money and I put it in a small clutch. I placed the clutch in one of the boxes and marked the box that it had cash in it. Captain Dallinger and I both initialed the box. After all the personal items that were recovered were packaged, we moved them to a U-Haul van and transported them to the Moscow City shop. At the shop, we unloaded the packages into a secure building. On 12/12/22, at about 08:30 hours, I met with the Gonzalez blank SG at the city shop. I had previously arranged to release Kaylee Gonzalez's personal property to G at the family's request. I unlocked the secure evidence building and we moved 22 boxes containing Kaylee's personal items that had been removed from 1122 King Road into G's vehicle. There wasn't enough room in the vehicle for all the items, so G made a return trip. At that point, we loaded the remaining items, 2 purple totes, a clear plastic tote, and a yellow suitcase. G signed for the items and Officer Rosinski took a photo of his ID to attach to the form at a later date. I secured the evidence storage building and cleared. Moscow Police Department, Lawrence Mowry. On December 6, 2022, I applied and was granted a warrant for all the information in DoorDash's possession related to sales, deliveries, purchases, and/or transactions made to 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho for the period of January 1, 2022 to present. On December 6, 2022, at approximately 15:35 hours, the warrant was served via email to blank@doordash.com. On December 7, 2022, I received an email from DoorDash containing the data requested pursuant to the warrant. The files were downloaded to the forensic computers located in the secure forensic computer lab at the Moscow Police Department. I completed the warrant return receipt and affidavit. These documents were sent to the Latah County Prosecutor's Office to be returned to the court. I also emailed a copy of the receipt to DoorDash, blank@DoorDash.com, as this was the originating email address associated with the documents. Moscow Police Department, Danny Vargas. Interview with MC. On December 1st, 2022, Corporal Payne asked if I would assist with interviewing family members of Ethan Chapin at the Latah County Annex Building. I arrived and spoke with MC, Ethan's sister. I introduced myself to M and told her I would be recording our conversation so I would not miss anything, she said. M had filled out an adult victim background questionnaire which I reviewed before speaking with M. M listed Ethan as being easygoing, positive, friendly, funny, and stated he did not have any negative issues or negative feelings with anyone. M listed the following people as being the people whom Ethan spent the most time with: Xana, KF, PE, HO, Hunter Johnson, and Emily Allen. M told me the following about the people who Ethan was closest to. Xana. Ethan and Xana have been dating for about a year and met through school. M has known Xana for 1 year and met her through Ethan. M talked with Xana once during a rush but never hung out with her until Xana started dating Ethan. She partied with Xana but never hung out with her outside of that. Xana was a junior, had a lot of friends, and knew most of campus. M met Xana's dad briefly during Parents' Weekend, but never met Xana's sister and never heard anything factual about Xana's mom, but knew Xana did not have contact with her. Ethan would often spend time with Xana while she was at work at Mad Greek. Ethan and Xana never mentioned having weird feelings about anyone, customers or employees, at Mad Greek. Ethan never said anything negative about his relationship with Xana to her. PE. P is a blank and in the blank fraternity. M does not know much about P. M thought P was a farmer and from California, but she was not sure. Ethan would spend a lot of time with P and they met through the fraternity. Ethan and P were very similar and would often watch football together on Sundays. P lives at blank. Ethan would hang out with P 3, 4, or 5 days out of the week. When Ethan would be with P, they would spend time at Xana's residence, P's residence, and several apartments at the Whites. Emily Allen in JL apartment, blank on the second floor, left side. The blank apartments at the Whites. OA, TR, Ethan's, and H, unknown last name, the top floor, on the right. KF. K was one of Ethan's closest friends. K lives in blank at blank. M stated K and P were Ethan's closest friends. M did not see any drug use amongst any of Ethan and his friends, but said they drank a lot, which was normal for the fraternity life. Hunter Johnson. Hunter Johnson is dating Emily Allen and was the person who Bethany and Dylan called to come to their house the morning of the homicide. Ethan golfed a lot with Johnson, and Johnson and Emily came to their house over the past summer several times and hung out. Ethan never had any issues with Johnson. M never heard of or observed Ethan get into fights with anyone. Ethan never confided in her about having problems or frustrations with anyone. Ethan never mentioned having any issues with any of the girls who lived with Xana. M spent time at Xana's house and never observed any issues between any of the roommates. M said she did not know Maddie or Kaylee well and said she knew Bethany and Dylan better. M thought if Ethan did have anything he needed to talk to someone about, he would most likely speak with their blank, H, or Xana, because he saw them daily. He would most likely speak with their brother H, or Xana, because he saw them daily. M said Ethan was an open book and was not a private person. I asked M if she knew what Ethan did on Friday and Saturday, November 11th or 12th. M said she was not sure what Ethan did on Friday. M said on Saturday Ethan did not go to the football game or tailgate and thought he spent that time at the Whites, possibly at J and E's apartment. M said in the evening Ethan went with her to a formal event, which was at the Hunga Dunga from 1900 to 2000 hours. M said they drove to Hunga Dunga in their vehicle with Ethan, HO with his date RS, DM and his date HB, and JK and his date RB. M said D and J are both blank members. M said Hunga Dunga was rented by her sorority and this was a private event. M told me she knew the majority of everyone who was at Hunga Dunga and nothing out of the ordinary occurred while they were at the event. M said they all left Hunga Dunga and got in the same car and drove to her sorority where the girls, including her, got out, went inside, and changed clothes. M said R, H, and R all got back into the car and left with Ethan. H, D, and J to go to a party at the blank. M said she texted Ethan at approximately 2014 hours telling him she did not want to go with them to blank and was going to stay at her sorority. M said Ethan texted her several times trying to convince her to come to blank, but she did not go and eventually fell asleep around 2200 hours. M said the blank party was just a normal Saturday evening party. I asked M if she saw any weird comments on Ethan's social media. M said she recently logged into Ethan's Instagram account and made it private because it was public and a lot of random people were making bad comments on it. M said people were speculating this was a drug-related thing or something to do with the girls. M told me she did not notice the names of the people who were commenting, but said they were weird accounts with just one follower. M said people were making bad comments on all the other victims' accounts as well. I asked M if the girls had any bad feelings with any of their neighbors. M said she did not think so. M told me she was at Xana's house a lot of the weekends and said they would often get noise complaints. M said she was present for 2 of the noise complaints. M thought the person making the complaint lived in a house behind 1122 King Road, but was not certain. M told me she never witnessed any retaliation from any of the neighbors. I asked M if Xana and her roommates knew anyone who lived around them, and she said she did not know. I thanked M for speaking with me and told her if she thought of anything else to let us know. My conversation with M was recorded and is copied onto a DVD, which I have booked into MPT evidence. Moscow Police Department Danny Vargas. On November 15, 2022, I had a phone message from the front desk to contact RR, as she may have information regarding Kaylee Gonzalez having a stalker. RR. On November 15, 2022, at approximately 11:15 hours, I called and spoke with R. I introduced myself to R and told her I was given her message to call about possible information regarding Kaylee having a stalker. R told me she and some friends had lunch with Kaylee around September 11, 2022, and she thought Kaylee said something about having a stalker. R thought Kaylee mentioned receiving something in the mail, but some of the other friends at lunch thought Kaylee mentioned getting strange message through Facebook Messenger. R told me she had been speaking with all of the friends who were at lunch and said they were trying to remember what was said. R provided me with the names of the other friends who were at lunch with Kaylee on or around September 11, 2022. CW, graduated last year, U of I. MB, left U of I last semester. SR, student at Washington State University. BD, unknown phone number, current U of I student. R provided me with name JQ and told me Jay and Kaylee were very close friends and had plans to live together in June. R said Jay was not at the lunch, but she thought that Kaylee would have spoken with her the most. R said Kaylee was with J, O, and B the most. I asked R if she could think of anyone who Kaylee had any issues with, and she said no. R told me Kaylee was very kind-hearted to everyone. I asked R if she could think of anyone who Kaylee had any issues with, and she said no. R told me Kaylee was very kind-hearted to everyone. I asked R how the conversation came up regarding the stalker at lunch with Kaylee. R said Kaylee would always talk about things in a light-hearted manner, and said one time she was speaking about childhood trauma in a joking manner and they did not think much of it. R thought the stalker topic just got brought up at some point during the lunch conversation, but she could not remember how specifically. I thanked R for the information and told her to contact us if she remembered anything else. JQ. On November 15, 2022, at approximately 14:30 hours, I called and spoke with JQ. Jay told me she and Kaylee had plans to move in together in June and said she spoke with Kaylee often. I asked Jay about the topic of Kaylee saying she had a stalker. Jay told me she remembered Kaylee mentioning something about a stalker but could not remember any of the details. Jay said she last saw Kaylee the weekend of October 3, 2022, when she came for a visit to attend the U of I football game. Jay said she also visited Kaylee around the weekend of June 14, 2022, and did not think Kaylee mentioned having a stalker on either of these weekends. Jay thought the topic was brought up sometime during the previous school year in May. I asked Jay if Kaylee shared any information with her of having problems with anyone, and she said no. Jay told me she did not know of anyone who did not like Kaylee or would have it out for her. I asked Jay if Kaylee mentioned having any potential love interests, or said she was seeing anybody. Jay told me when she last saw Kaylee on the weekend of October 3rd, Kaylee said she was not seeing anyone or sleeping with anyone. I asked Jay what she knew about JD, Kaylee's ex-boyfriend. Jay told me that Kaylee and Jay both loved each other and did not have any hard feelings against one another. Jay said Jay and Kaylee started dating when they were younger, and Kaylee broke up with Jay so she could grow up a bit and experience other things. Jay said at first the breakup was hard for Jay, but they remained friends. Jay said she did not know the other roommates that well who lived with Kaylee. Jay said when she visited during the weekend of October 3rd, 2022, there were a bunch of people at Kaylee's house, but no one who stood out. Jay told me she was with OW and handed the phone to O so I could speak with her. OW. I told O I had spoken with R about the lunch they had with Kaylee and the topic of the stalker. O said she and her friends have all discussed the stalker topic and could not remember exactly what was said. I asked O if there was anyone who Kaylee spoke to her about, and she said no. O told me she graduated from the university last year, was not in Moscow, and did not spend that much time with Kaylee. O said she did not know anyone who did not like Kaylee or had it out for her, and she did not know Kaylee's roommates. I thanked O for speaking with me. O gave the phone back to J, who told me I should speak with Kaylee's friend NG, blank, and said N and Kaylee spend a lot of time together. O and J both provided me with their current addresses. I thanked both J and O for speaking with me and told them to contact us if they remember anything else. My conversations with R, J, and O were all recorded and are copied to a DVD and booked into Moscow Police Department evidence. Moscow Police Department, Danny Vargas. On December 7, 2022, I assisted with packing up and moving personal belongings from 1122 King Road to the Moscow Police Department's secured storage garage. KP, Captain Lanier, and I packed up the items in Bethany Frankel's room and Dylan Mortensen's room. On December 8, 2022, I spoke with RM, who was in blank for M. M initially wanted to retrieve some items for Mortensen, then stated Mortensen would come retrieve all of her items sometime after the holidays. On December 15, 2022, I spoke with TV, who is in blank for Frankel. V asked if we could send Frankel her reading glasses, passport, and iPad to blank with the investigator who would be coming to interview her. Captain Lanier and I retrieved the reading glasses and passport from Frankel's personal items at the Moscow Police Department's secured storage. I sent an email to V stating we would be sending the glasses and passport but could not release the iPad yet as it was one of the items seized during the search warrant. V asked where Frankel could get the rest of her personal belongings, and I told him she could contact me and we could make arrangements to return all of her items which are in our secured storage. I gave Frankel's glasses and passport to ISP Mike Mooney, who would be giving the items to the appropriate ISP investigator who would be traveling to blank to speak with Frankel. Moscow Police Department, Lawrence Mowry. On November 26, 2022, I applied and was granted a warrant for data associated with knife sales of the following items. ASIN number blank, K-bar full-size U.S. Marine Corps fighting knife, ASIN number blank, K-bar 1217S, leather sheath, USMC logo. On November 26, 2022, at approximately 15:32 hours, the warrant was served via FedEx. Forensic Account MD with the Federal Bureau of Investigation assisted in the production and service of the warrants. On December 8, 2022, I received an email from FAD. The email was in response from blank at Amazon.com, stating the data was available to download. I received a second email from FAD with the data return. Moscow Police Department, Tyson Barrett. On 12/13/2022, I emailed JK a property release form for Xana's personal property and her car. Kernodle told me he was going to have a blank drive down from blank and retrieve the items since he was in blank. On 12/17/2022, Kernodle emailed the form back indicating he was giving permission for RN to take custody of the property and the car. On the morning of 12/20/2022, N called me and said he would be in Moscow later that morning to collect Xana's property and car. I met with N at the Moscow City shop around 11:30 hours that day. I released 9 boxes containing Xana's personal property from the house in 2010 blue Honda Civic AZ license blank. N signed for and took custody of the items. Dylan Mortensen, property released to attorney. On December 21st, 2022, at approximately 11:30 hours, I met with RM, Dylan Mortensen's attorney, at the City of Moscow shop and released the following items to her. Mortensen's passport, Ziploc bag of jewelry, small black purse, Nike Air Jordan shoes, North Face black puffy coat. M signed for the items. M said she would meet with Dylan and find out when she would be collecting the remainder of her items. The signed release is attached electronically to the case file. Moscow Police Department, Dustin Blaker. On November 13, 2022, at around 13:47 hours, I interviewed Bethany Frankel at the Moscow Police Department in regards to the death of 4 of her roommates. Bethany is a resident of 1122 King Road. Frankel was home sleeping in her room located on the basement floor of the residence. Bethany has an iPhone 11 Pro cell phone with passcode blank. Bethany went to the blank party at around 20:30 hours with Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle. They hung out in the apartment for a while together, and then Bethany went up to the main part of the fraternity to hang out at the party. Maddie and Kaylee went to the corner club together, not sure when they left. Bethany did not see Ethan and Xana at the party and left to go to KF residence at blank Taylor Avenue. Bethany walked home around 1-ish, and when they got back to 1122 King Road, Dylan and LM were at the residence, and they all watched a movie together. Maddie and Kaylee got to the house at around 01:45 or 0200 hours. Elle left the house, and Dylan went to bed. Bethany hung out with Maddie and Kaylee for a while in Kaylee's room. Bethany and Maddie took Murphy, Kaylee's dog, out to go to the bathroom between 02:30 and 0300 hours. Bethany did not stay outside for very long as it was cold. Maddie then went to bed and watched a TV show to help her sleep. Baby Teddy. Around 0400 or 0420 hours, Bethany heard what she thought was a firework and saw a spark on the ground from under her door. Bethany then heard Murphy barking. Dylan called Bethany and stated she had seen someone in the house, and Bethany told her she would come down to her room and sleep with her. Dylan went to Bethany's room and they went to bed. They woke up at around 1100 hours and talked to other friends who came over and checked on Xana and Ethan and found them deceased. Bethany originally called 911 and stated her friend was passed out and would not wake up. Bethany talked about an incident with Kaylee, who stated about a month ago she saw an unknown male up above their house to the south who was staring at her when she took Murphy out to go potty. Bethany stated Kaylee broke up with her longtime ex-boyfriend about 3 months ago because she was planning on moving to Texas. Bethany could not provide me with anything else at that time. Second interview with Bethany Frankel. On November 16, 2022, at around 11:55 hours, I met with Bethany Frankel at her blank office at blank. Present during the interview, besides me and Bethany, were her blank, TV, and Matthew Wen with Nevada State Police Investigation Division. This was a follow-up interview with Bethany related to the homicide in Moscow, Idaho. I asked Bethany who had the front door code. Bethany told me the following people had the door codes: Bethany Frankel, Dylan Mortensen, Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, JM, CO, LM, Hunter Johnson, Emily Allen, JL. Bethany stated the above-named people were the only ones she knew who had the code. Bethany stated the code for the front door was the same code from the year before. I asked Bethany what the code was, and she stated it was blank. Bethany stated Maddie was the only roommate who lived in the residence the year before. Bethany stated her, Dylan, and Kaylee moved in around August 3rd, 2022. Bethany stated Ethan had his own apartment, but she was not sure where it was located. Bethany stated Maddie kept her same room from the year before. Maddie's room was located on the 3rd floor on the east side of the residence, next to the bathroom. I asked Bethany about Murphy's routine. Murphy was Kaylee's dog she had purchased when she was still dating JD. Bethany stated Kaylee would primarily take Murphy out, but Maddie would also help. Bethany stated they never just left the door open because he would run away, so they'd have to use a leash when they took him out. Bethany stated Murphy would not bark that often and was very friendly. Bethany stated Murphy would primarily sleep in Kaylee's room, and if Kaylee was not home, he would be left in her room. I asked Bethany about the Uber driver Maddie and Kaylee used on a regular basis. Bethany stated Kaylee knew him from other blank, who used him on a regular basis. Bethany stated they would either contact the Uber driver through the app or contact him directly. Bethany stated the Uber driver was very friendly and was always nice to everyone, and everyone trusted him. Bethany was able to tell me the Uber driver was married and his wife just had a baby. Bethany told me he drove a small car, possibly gray or black, but she could not tell me more about the car. I asked Bethany who in the house had a boyfriend. Bethany told me Xana was dating Ethan, Dylan was dating a boy named Q who lived in Boise and went to BSU. Maddie was dating a JS who lived in Boise. Kaylee was dating JD but had recently broken up with him. Kaylee was possibly hanging out with ME. Bethany stated M was Xana's big in the Greek system. Bethany stated the relationship was new and that he had never stayed over at the house, but Kaylee stayed with him possibly more than once. Bethany stated Kaylee was also talking to an ER, also a blank blank. Bethany stated she did not have a boyfriend, but did mention she was kind of hanging out with KD, who is a blank, but they were not serious. I asked Bethany if she knew an OE, and she stated that she did not. I asked Bethany if she knew the person behind Kaylee and Maddie at the Grub Truck video. Bethany stated she did not know who the person was. I asked Bethany if she knew a guy by the name of S. Bethany stated she did not know him, but stated she had heard from a friend of Maddie's, S, that her boyfriend JF, also a blank, that he would never want to get in a fight with S, as he had anger issues. I asked Bethany about who paid for the Spectrum Wi-Fi account. Bethany told me it was Kaylee who paid for the account. Bethany told me the login for the password was blank and the Wi-Fi name was blank. Bethany stated she did not know what the actual username and login was for the account. I asked Bethany if she knew of anyone who had gotten asked to leave any of the parties thrown at the house. Bethany stated 2 guys from the blank house, J.H. and another guy she only knew was R, got in a fight and were told to leave. Bethany stated this fight occurred about a month before the incident at the house. I asked Bethany about an A.O. Bethany said A used to live at the house but moved out. I asked Bethany who used the bedroom on the west end of the first floor. Bethany stated Kaylee and Maddie used that room as an office. Bethany stated Kaylee would use it for her work and had a computer in it. I asked Bethany if any of the girls who lived in the house had jobs. Bethany told me Maddie and Xana both worked at Mad Greek on Main Street. Bethany told me Kaylee worked for an online company and worked from home. Bethany did not know who the company was. Bethany told me Maddie also worked for an online company, but it was not the same company. Bethany said the company Maddie worked for was out of Boise, and during the summer she had worked for them in their office in Boise. I asked Bethany about the drug use in the house and who used. Bethany told me Ethan and Xana both took Adderall when they drank alcohol. Bethany told me she saw Ethan and Xana both use Adderall the night before the murders. Bethany told me she saw Ethan take a pill and she saw Xana crush up the pill and snort it by using a rolled-up bill in her room. Bethany also said she thought Kaylee also used Adderall but was not sure. I asked Bethany if she had any issues from any of the other people who lived around them. Bethany stated besides the 3 to 4 noise complaints they had, there were no other issues. Bethany told me Kaylee would look up who the registered sex offenders who lived in the area were. Bethany stated Kaylee had found a registered sex offender who lived close to them in the blue apartments on Queen. Kaylee stated he was older, in his 30s to 40s. Bethany stated Kaylee was looking at the sex offender registry within the week or so before the murders. Bethany stated Kaylee was into crime shows. Bethany stated there was nothing that happened to prompt her to look up the sex offender registry. I asked Bethany about 2 other incidents where Kaylee had mentioned some weird things had happened. Bethany told me about an incident in Winco where a male had followed her around the store, watched her check out, and then followed her to her vehicle. Xana was waiting in the vehicle. Bethany stated Kaylee said the male was African American in his late 20s. Bethany said she felt it happened sometime before Halloween, so mid to late October. Bethany stated Kaylee purchased a case of White Claws for Xana. Bethany and her roommates had found the door open on November 4th at around 10:57, and they entered the house and they grabbed the golf clubs out of the west first floor bedroom. Bethany and the other roommates walked around the house with the golf clubs to check the house. Kaylee was not home for this incident as she had gone home for the weekend. Wind was blowing and the screws on the hinges were loose, and Xana's dad fixed it before he left that weekend. Kaylee told everyone about an incident where she saw a male watching her when she had taken Murphy out back to go to the bathroom. Bethany could not remember when this happened, and she could not provide an actual day. Bethany stated she had been at a chapter meeting at the time Kaylee called them asking if they were going to be home soon. The following is a timeline of events, November 12th, 2022 to November 13th, 2022. Bethany stated she was the last one in the house to wake up, and when she got up, Ethan was in the house in the living room, and Kaylee, Dylan, Maddie, and Xana were all gone. Bethany felt she got up sometime between 10 and 11 in the morning. Bethany stated she checked her Find My Friends app and saw they were at Taco Bell at the time. Once Kaylee, Dylan, Maddie, and Xana got back, they started getting ready for the day. Kaylee, Dylan, Maddie, and Bethany were in Kaylee's room, and they were getting ready for a party at blank Taylor Street, the Whites. The house belonged to blank S and K. The apartment is located on the 2nd floor on the far east side of the apartment building. Bethany stated this was between 11 to 12 in the afternoon. Bethany stated Kaylee left for the Whites before the rest of the group. Bethany stated she left around 2 p.m. with Maddie, Dylan, Xana, Ethan, Hunter, J, L, K, A, E, and SS. Bethany stated she started drinking around 11:30 or 12 o'clock when still at 1122 King Road. Bethany stated she was drinking mimosas and high noons throughout the night. Bethany also stated she played a drinking game called Rage Cage later in the night. Bethany felt she drank a 12-pack of high noons during the night, 2 mimosas, and the standard wine glass. Bethany was unsure of what she had been drinking when she played Rage Cage. Bethany stated she was at the Whites up until around 15:48 hours when she left with Xana. Maddie, Kaylee, and Dylan stayed at the Whites. Ethan had left before her and Xana. Bethany and Xana went to AB's place, somewhere on Taylor. Bethany and Xana left there around 16:51 and went back to 1122 King Road. Bethany, Xana, Maddie, Kaylee, and Dylan were all at the house, made food. Ethan was not at the house during this time. At around 1800 hours, Bethany, Xana, Maddie, Kaylee, and Dylan all went to take a nap, and they all set alarms for 2000 hours. Bethany got up at 2000 hours. Once they all woke up, they got ready to go to the blank for a house party. Maddie and Bethany left first to go to P apartment at blank at around 2100 hours. Kaylee stayed home and was not going to the party at blank. Ethan and Xana came over to the party after Bethany and Maddie. Dylan did not come with the rest and walked over at a later time. Maddie was not there for very long, and she went back to the house to go to the club with Kaylee. Bethany felt Maddie left sometime after 2109 hours. One of Bethany's friends, Y.A., got to the blank and hung out with her. Bethany stated Y showed up at around 2200 hours. They stayed in one of the apartments for a little longer, and she and Y went up to the main house for the blank fraternity. Bethany stated this might have been around 2230 to 2245 hours. Bethany states she hung out in the main part of the house for a while, and before she left the blank fraternity, she saw Ethan and Xana in P's apartment. Bethany stated that this was around 017 hours. Bethany and Y went to A house again on Taylor. Bethany stated her, J, H, K, and Y were the only ones at the house. Bethany stated she walked home at around 0100 hours, and Dylan and LM were the only ones in the house. Bethany, Dylan, and L were watching Vampire Diaries for a while, and at around 0122 hours, L left. Dylan went to her room after L left. At around 0200 hours, Kaylee and Maddie came home. Maddie and Kaylee, Dylan, and Bethany went up to Kaylee's bedroom once they got home. Kaylee was getting ready for bed as they were hanging out in her room. Bethany, Maddie, and Dylan went downstairs, and Maddie and Bethany took Murphy outside to let him go to the bathroom. Okay, that does clarify earlier that it was in fact Maddie who went out with Bethany and Murphy. Bethany only stayed outside for a short time, and then she came back up into the house and put something away in her cupboard and grabbed a bag of chips. Bethany went downstairs to go to bed. Bethany stated nothing was unusual about Maddie and Bethany's demeanor. Bethany stated there was nothing unusual about Maddie and Kaylee's demeanor when they got home. Bethany stated they both appeared to be happy. Bethany said Maddie was highly intoxicated and she had not seen her at that level of intoxication for a very long time. Bethany said when she went to bed, she was using her iPad to watch a TV show off of Hulu. Bethany said she was watching Baby Daddy. Bethany could not remember the episode she was watching or how long she was watching. As she was watching the show, Maddie came down the stairs and asked her if she had Murphy with her because she could not find him. Bethany told her no. Bethany said her door was locked and she normally locks her door when she goes to bed. Bethany told me she eventually turned off the show and her iPad and went to sleep. Bethany said she woke up after falling asleep to hearing what she felt like was a firecracker go off, and she thought she saw a sparkler going off the crack under her door. Bethany stated she did not know what happened. Either Bethany called Dylan or Dylan called Bethany, and Dylan stated she thought she had just seen someone dressed in all black in the house. Bethany said Xana had been wearing all black. Dylan responded by saying she thought he had a ski mask on. Bethany said she didn't really know what to say about what Dylan said. Bethany admitted both her and Dylan get scared easy. Bethany even thought maybe one of Ethan's frat brothers could have been playing a joke. Bethany told Dylan to come down to her room, and Dylan ran down to her room. Bethany tried calling Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan's phones, and nobody answered. Bethany said it was normal for Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan to not answer if they were sleeping if she called late at night. Bethany looked at her phone, and it showed Bethany called Dylan at 04:19 and at 04:20. Dylan called Bethany back. During the call, Bethany asked Dylan if she heard a firecracker, and Dylan said she did. Bethany could not recall if it was during this call where Dylan was talking about seeing someone in black walking in the house. Once Bethany and Dylan were in Bethany's room together, they continued to talk about what they had heard and saw. Bethany told me Dylan said the male in black was walking out of the back door and they had made eye contact with each other. Bethany said Dylan said the male was white with big nose and that he was possibly holding a small vacuum-type object. Bethany and Dylan did not call 911 at the time because Bethany thought Dylan was imagining what she was talking about. Bethany stated both her and Dylan were both still drunk and very groggy. Bethany told me prior to hearing the firecracker she thought she heard Murphy bark. She also heard what she thought was the beer pong table moving and the cups falling. The beer pong table is located in the living room, which is above Bethany's room. Bethany stated she was not sure when the sequence of events were for sure, but she knows she heard Murphy bark, the beer pong table, and then the firecracker first before she called Dylan to see if she had heard the same thing. Bethany told me she tried calling Xana and Maddie at 04:21 and then tried calling Ethan at 04:22. Bethany stated she tried calling Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana several more times once Dylan got to her room. Bethany told me when she went to bed she remembers most of the lights being left on inside the house. Bethany told me after trying to contact the other roommate, she fell back to sleep, then woke up at around 07:30 and tried calling her dad about her tooth. Bethany called her dad again at 0800 hours, but there was no answer. Her house at 0801 with no answer, and then called her mom at 0802, and she answered and asked to talk to her dad. Her dad called back at 0809, and she talked to him and eventually took Advil for her tooth. Bethany then fell back to sleep. Bethany woke up at around 1100 hours and noticed no one else in the house was up. Bethany stated she knew this because Xana's Snapchat location was not on, and it should have been. Bethany and Dylan got scared because they should have been up. Bethany then called her friend Jay and told her she and Dylan were scared and asked if she would come over and get them. Dylan then called Emily and asked her to come over. Dylan and Bethany knew Emily was with Hunter, so they knew he would come over with her. Hunter arrived at the house and came through the front door. Hunter went up the stairs first, and when Bethany and Dylan went up the stairs, Hunter turned around and told Dylan and Bethany to get out of the house and to call for help. Bethany stated she could see Xana on the floor of her bedroom. Bethany said Xana was wearing underwear and a sweatshirt. Bethany stated the door was partially open, but stated the door should normally be closed. Bethany called 911 and was trying to talk to the dispatcher, but was having a hard time talking. Bethany had to give the phone to her friend Jay so she could talk to the dispatcher. I asked Bethany if she had ever seen Xana on the floor like she did that morning. Bethany told me she has never seen this, but has heard Xana would pass out on the floor in the past when she is highly intoxicated. Bethany told me Hunter went back into the house. Bethany could not remember if Jay and Emily went into the house. Bethany told me she believed Hunter grabbed a knife from the kitchen when he went back into the house. Bethany stated the police arrived as she was still on the phone and she disconnected with dispatch. Bethany did not provide any further information related to this incident. I think now's the part where I would like to have a brief discussion about the discourse around Dylan and Bethany and people accusing them of committing the crime and or saying they were involved or condemning how they reacted to the situation. None of that is appropriate in the slightest. First of all, Dylan and Bethany are also victims of this situation. Fortunately, they were not harmed physically. They are still alive, but being in a situation like that is incredibly frightening. They are 100% victims of the situation as well. I cannot imagine going through that and having to live with that trauma forever. People asking questions about how Dylan could have seen BK and not immediately called 911. As they've mentioned in various forms, she thought maybe it was like a frat guy playing a prank, that maybe she was just imagining things, like she was drunk and groggy. Also, Bethany stated that her and Dylan would frequently overreact about things. Personally, I've never had a hard time understanding why things played out the way they did. Personally, for me, I have medicated anxiety, and I've had many a times where I hear a noise and my brain jumps to the absolute extreme possible explanation, and I start panicking. But because none of that has ever happened or been logical, because who would assume that like the craziest thing you could ever assume about something is actually true? I always brush it out of my head and calm myself down. I'm like, you're overreacting, chill out, and I move past it. Even probably to the extent that Dylan was freaked out about seeing BK. I've had many times that I have cooked up something in my brain that overthinks everything and was afraid of something, like at night or something. I've literally taken my nightstand and pushed it up against my front door before going to bed because I was concerned about something. I knew I was probably crazy, but because I was that concerned still, I would literally push my nightstand up against my door. Like, I've done this a couple times before. There have been a couple times I saw someone weird walking outside of my Ring camera that should not have been there at like 3 a.m, and I stayed up watching the live feed for an hour before I eventually fell back to sleep. No, I didn't call the security patrol for my apartment complex because I was afraid it was nothing and I was being dramatic. I watched the security footage until I fell asleep. So I completely understand the overthinking it, because realistically, who would have thought the worst case scenario was actually happening? That's insane. That's insane to think that would happen. Like, that's insane that this actually did happen. I mean, her panicking and it being a real emergency was probably a 1 in a million thing. Truly, I would imagine her absolute worst nightmare. So I totally understand the being so freaked out by something, like you were scared to your core, but still not, calling 911 or doing anything about it because you freak out about stuff easily. I mean, it's like the boy who cried wolf. If you're an anxious person and a person who has an overactive imagination, you will understand. Your brain cooks up all kinds of scenarios, like worst case scenarios over a stupid little bump in the night or a little thing that usually can be logically explained away. You can't call the police every time you hear something. So it's actually kind of frightening because sometimes you don't know. I guess in situations like this, you gaslight yourself into thinking that there's nothing wrong because there's never anything wrong. Nothing could have been done if she had called the police then. And I don't blame her for telling herself that it's nothing, because I have done that many times in my life. On top of the fact that people were like, well, there was a person in the house. How could you not panic about that? She lived in a college party house. People say this over and over again, and some people still can't wrap their brains around it for some reason. I'm not understanding why. She lived in a college house that was known as a party house that I'm sure would have people coming and going all the time. She had 4 other roommates, plus Ethan, who obviously any one of them could be inviting anyone over. In the amount of testimonies we've read so far where so-and-so says, oh, well, I knew Kaylee, but I didn't know the person with her. Or someone says, well, I knew Xana, but I didn't know Kaylee and Maddie. Even though all of the roommates were so close, there are still a bunch of people that don't know each other amongst them. So it's really not that crazy to think that Dylan could just have gotten startled and freaked out, and realistically it was just some guy that one of the other roommates had over that was leaving that she didn't know. Yes, weird that he had a ski mask on, however, it was November in Idaho. They stated that there was footprints in the snow leading up to the back door, so obviously it was chilly. Could be explained away too. Yes, there's red flags, but for someone who's an overthinker, for someone who lives in a house where there's frequently people coming and going, it was a party night. That's not really a red flag. It's easily explained away in the circumstances. On top of that, not that any of them really need to explain their situation anymore because they are victims. But I will say, I briefly lived with roommates. Both of them were my best friends, closest friends. And even still, there were occasionally people that I did not know entering the house. I'd see a guy on a Ring camera that I didn't recognize. But I didn't assume that he was coming to kill us in the middle of the night because I assumed this guy was related to one of my roommates. Usually it was roommate's boyfriend's friend. Sometimes there would be people in the house. I'd walk out of my room and I didn't recognize someone. But I wouldn't panic because I'd assume they were there with someone else. And it wasn't even a party house. It was the 3 of us living in a house. So from my experiences with that, to then the extent of it being a party house where more people are coming and going frequently and there's even more roommates that could potentially know someone that they invited over, to me there's literally no reason why, other than an overactive imagination, she would have thought that he was anything but someone who was visiting the house. Yeah, out of the ordinary, but crazier things have happened in college. So, yeah. Unfortunately, it was the worst case scenario. But when you are an anxious person and an overthinker and someone who panics at a bump in the night every single time you hear one, you learn to tell yourself to chill out and move on because it's never anything. So how was she supposed to think that it was this time? Yeah, and then I guess, the 2 of them waking up and then being sober, because keep in mind, they were drunk during this. You're not in your right mind thinking. And things seem less urgent than they are when you're drunk. So keep that in mind as well. So, when they wake up and they're in their right minds and they're both oh my God, I really don't feel like I imagined that. And the panic starts coming back. In the Prime documentary, I don't remember who said it, but someone said that there had been a couple other occasions where the same friends were called over because Bethany and or Dylan were concerned, and obviously nothing was ever wrong. So this really shouldn't have seemed like anything out of the ordinary. This was practically a regular occurrence. It just unfortunately was actually something bad this time. I like, it truly makes me so angry seeing people accuse them, question them. It's ridiculous. That's my rant. I've been wanting to say that for months and months and months. Quite frankly, since the first affidavit came out and everyone was accusing them and questioning them, I have been angry about that for a long time. So they're victims. There's nothing they could have done. They handled it as best as they could with the information that they had. And I truly hope that they can recover from this and, you know, feel a sense of peace again and not be afraid constantly. Moscow Police Department, Tyson Barrett. On the morning of 1/2/2023, I received a call from KL that her blank TC was driving to Moscow to retrieve blank Madison Mogen's car and personal belongings. KL being Madison's mother. I emailed Elle a property release form. She signed it and sent it back. On 1/2/2023, at about 10:44 hours, I received a call from O indicating he was on his way to Moscow. I met O at the Moscow City shop at approximately 1300 hours. O collected Madison Mogen's personal belongings consisting of 7 boxes, 1 tote, and a suitcase/bag. 2 of the boxes were flat and contained a mirror and other items. O and his associate, J.M., put Mogen's car on a flatbed trailer to tow home. O signed for the items, and I took a photo of the release along with his driver's license. Moscow Police Department, Roger Lanier. On December 30th, 2022, at approximately 08:45 hours, Disaster Services responded to 1122 King Road to being cleaning the residence of biohazards and other chemicals used during the crime scene processing. This was pre-arranged response as members of a disaster response were setting up their tents and barriers. I received a call from Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson. Mr. Thompson advised me that a judge's order had been issued requesting all mitigation and cleanup be halted immediately. At that point, I instructed the disaster service crew members to stop. I confirmed that the doors to the residence had not been opened and no one had entered the residence yet. I checked the evidence tape on the door to ensure the seal had not been broken. I stood by while all the equipment was loaded back into the response trailer and the entire team left the area. I returned the scene back over to the Northern States Security Guard and replaced the barricade tape across the parking area entrance. I left the scene at that time. Moscow Police Department, Dustin Blaker. On November 21st, 2022, I traveled from Moscow, Idaho to Meridian, Idaho to drop off evidence at the Idaho State Police Forensic Laboratory located at blank blank Meridian, Idaho. After getting evidence checked in the lab, I signed for a DNA profile which had been generated by the ISP Forensic Lab. This DNA profile was collected from a knife sheath, which was found by ISP investigators from District 2 during the initial search of 1122 King Road on November 13th. The sheath had been transported to the lab by ISP troopers. The DNA profile was stored in a vial, which was then packaged in an evidence envelope by ISP lab technicians and properly sealed with evidence tape. I signed the package showing I was taking possession of it on 11/21/2022, sometime between 16:30 and 1700 hours Mountain Time. Once I took possession of the DNA profile, it stayed in the box provided to me by the ISP lab until 11/22/22 at around 03:30 hours, when I removed it from the box and placed it in a small backpack. The backpack then stayed in my possession. The only time I was not physically holding the backpack was when I went through TSA security at the Boise airport. I was able to see the backpack as it went through the security system and subsequent check of my carry-on by TSA security. The envelope the DNA sample was in never left the backpack at any time during the security check by TSA. I arrived in Houston, Texas at around 1400 hours Central Time. I traveled to Othram, Inc., which is located at blank in Woodlands, Texas. I arrived at Othram at around 1510 hours. I handed the envelope with the DNA profile to JF, employee for Othram. We completed the chain of evidence paperwork both on the envelope and also on a form provided to me by Othram. I've burned all of these files into a DVD, which was booked into evidence. On November 13th, 2022, I was at 1122 King Road assisting with a homicide investigation and a search warrant at the address. Blank was called to remove the 4 deceased and then transport them to Spokane for autopsies to be performed. At around 21:28 hours, I had Officer J. Waters follow blank when they transported Xana and Ethan from 1122 King Road to their facility. I had Officer Waters stay at blank with Xana and Ethan so they could return and transport Kaylee and Madison. I followed blank from 1122 King Road back to their facility after they collected Kaylee and Madison. Once at blank, I watched PH blank blank place name tags on the 4 deceased along with corresponding numbers to help identify them. I then placed evidence tape on the body bags, sealing the bags up until they arrive in Spokane and the autopsies can be completed. I photographed the evidence tape and I have burned these photos into a DVD, which was booked into evidence. I saw H place the 4 deceased into a cooler located in his facility. Moscow Police Department, Lawrence, Maury. On December 12, 2022, I applied for and was granted a warrant for sales records from Blue Ridge Knives for a K-Bar KA-1217S USMC fighting knife sheath and known purchases and quantities of Blue Ridge knives from K-Bar, including on or about 3/8/2022. The purchase of 360 units on and or about 6/24/2022. The purchase of 480 units. Blue Ridge Knives are a wholesaler for K-Bar knives and sheaths. FBI Special Agent Douglas assisted in the service of a warrant to Elan Financial. On December 13, 2022, at approximately 07:54 hours, the warrant was served via email to blank@blueridgeknives.com. On December 16, 2022, I received an email from Special Agent Douglas providing the data requested pursuant to the warrant. I downloaded the files to the forensic computers located in the secure forensic computer lab at the Moscow Police Department. I completed the warrant return receipt and affidavit. These documents were sent to the Latah County Prosecutor's Office to be returned to the court. I also emailed a copy of the receipt to Blue Ridge, blank@blueridgeknives.com, as this was the originating email address associated with the documents. This is where I am going to leave off for this video. That was just up to document 100. Again, not including the things that I didn't think were important to include in this video. So, we've only reached 100 out of 314 documents that have been released thus far. This video is for sure getting long, so I am going to make a part 2. I literally am going to end this and start filming it right now, and that will be up on Wednesday. Again, if you want to view these documents yourself, they're obviously available to the public. I will link the Idaho, I don't know if it's Idaho State Police or Moscow Police website, whichever one it is. I will be linking it down below so you can download these documents for yourself and read them over if you would like to. If you want to see all of the little things about this and that and all the warrants they got. Again, all very important information for the police to have and to be documented, but for the purposes of this video, didn't think it was important to include all those. I've read some of them that I think are relevant in the string of events and that I know there were for sure outcomes for. Especially regarding the K-Bar knives. I know I've mentioned a lot of things about that we have not fully discussed. Yeah, there's a lot. A lot of people, another thing before I finish this, a lot of people were freaking out and essentially getting mad at the police department very early on because we knew nothing and saying that they were doing a horrible job. And I was rolling my eyes and also getting so angry at those people because I'm interested in true crime. Personally, if I was not doing this and makeup for a living, I absolutely would love to be a forensic investigator. I have such an interest in this and just the idea of helping solve these things and bring justice to the victims and their families. That is absolutely what I'd be doing for a job. So, say I'm very interested in this would be an understatement. However, maybe it's because I'm so interested in this that I am aware of this, but also I feel like it's common knowledge. Police departments do not release all the information they have to the public during an active investigation. Even once the investigation is closed, we are probably not going to know all of the stuff that happened. They probably will not release the crime scene photos. I really hope they don't for the victim's family's sake. Because quite frankly, it's none of our business. At the end of the day, it's none of our business. All of the little details here and there, like we don't need to know the birth dates, the social security numbers, the addresses. We don't need to know everything. Case closed, case solved, none of our business. And during an active investigation, it is also none of our business. If you constantly are releasing what you have, the suspect is also aware of what you have and can avoid you a lot easier. It's a tactic that's always used. Don't release the information until you have a conviction. Also, things were, again, not released because of the gag order to not taint a jury pool, because at this point, with how big the case already was, it was going to be hard enough to find jurors that didn't know much about it. So, yeah, I was aggressively rolling my eyes and like internally screaming at comments I saw of people getting angry at the police department and feeling entitled to the information. Just like people inserting themselves into the case and, you know, accusing roommates of doing it. I'm interested. I was interested to read these. Obviously, I'm interested enough that I want to share them with you in case you want to hear about it. But these are real people's lives who were unfortunately lost. There are real families, the roommates, friends, people who saw the bodies, Hunter, who are affected by this on a daily basis and have to live with this. So people who think that they know everything, think that they know better than the police departments and detectives, they're not perfect by any means. There are countless cases that they've messed up on and not done a great job on. I will never, ever say that. I mean, first of all, they're human, but also there are countless cases where I am horrified at how things were handled. But people, random people on the internet, do not need to be inserting themselves and acting like they know better than the police. So, yeah, I was getting very furious at all of this as it was unraveling, but I kept my mouth shut. Didn't want to insert myself too. But anyway, so we have gone through 100 documents, and I will be immediately after this filming the remaining 101 through 315, or the ones in there that I feel need to be included in this, I guess now, series. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, please be respectful in the comments, especially to the roommates. I will not tolerate any kind of hate towards the victims, the roommates, the victims' families. These are real people. It's not, yeah, they're real people. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button down below. Turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. Post every Sunday, most Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. As I said, part 2 of this video will be going up on Wednesday. Yeah, thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you Wednesday. Bye.